Yep. All right. We can get started. So now I'm on the Zoom. I'll turn my camera on. All right, so I'll call the meeting to order for Tuesday, May 13th for Standing Committee of the Whole. Attendance at the start of the meeting is not 100%. So I've got Councillor Killick, Councillor Mackay, and myself in the Douglas Cardinal boardroom. And I've got Councillor Broadhead virtually. Councillor Broadhead, you're attending CUDA right now, correct? Is that correct?
Just nod.
It is. Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to say why you're not here. And then Councillor Bermansky is online as well.
So
Councillor Hughes arrived just now, and Councillor, you got a text from Natalie? So she's gonna be late.
It's gonna be late, yeah.
All right, so that's attendance. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll do it.
Go ahead.
That's a May 13th, 2025 agenda be adopted as presented.
Also the vote.
Just one time.
Okay, that passes. All right, so,
You should have been on the other
hey,
side.
boys. I'm gonna separate you two.
You should separate them.
There's nobody on this side of me today.
They can't be there.
You're right-handed, right?
We have a couple time specific, so the order of today's agenda is going to be minutes. And then we're gonna do the Arts Development Advisory Committee, and then we're gonna flip right over to 6.1. The Enterprise Maintenance Management Project. And that's because our presenters are time specific. Okay, and then we'll flip back to 5.2 and continue on. So can I have a motion to adopt the minutes? Councillor Killick, go ahead.
That the Standing Committee of the Whole minutes of April 8th, 2025 be adopted as presented.
Call for the vote. That's unanimous. Carried. Okay, I did see Emily Baker virtually, right?
Yeah.
Saw her coming in. There she is. Hi, Emily. So you're presenting the annual report from the Art Development Advisory Committee. Go ahead when you're ready.
I am. Hello. I'm just going to share my screen so I can pull it up here. Please work. Fingers crossed. So, all right. Can you all see that?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can.
All right, I'll just zoom that in a bit. Okay, thank you for having me and for continuing to support the Arts Development Advisory Committee. 2024 was a big year. We've gotten a lot done, and so the annual report, I think, is the longest one I've written for you guys yet, but there's really good pictures, so there you go. It's not all text. I'll give you a quick highlight overview of everything that went through, but I trust you'll have time to read it or have done so already on your own. And so one of the things we got done quite early in the year last year, before the end of June, was getting a new public art policy installed within the city. It had been out of step with some other policies within City Council and operations, and so it was really nice to kind of get that project tied off and get a new public art policy officially back onto the books with the City of St. Albert. And so some of those highlights included definitions of clear roles for the various bodies and people who are involved with public art projects, defining the procurement processes and maintenance expectations through standards set out in the policy, establishing the selection committee roster, which allows citizens the opportunity to volunteer themselves to act as jurors for public art selection, which is quite exciting, and that was brand new, as well as sort of establishing an ongoing transfer from the capital reserve to the public art reserve every year, sort of setting that baseline of continuous funding through these projects. But one of my favorite elements of the new public art policy is sort of defining what public art does for our community, which is to establish a sense of place and connection, well-being, and wonder, which I think we all need a little bit more of in our lives. One of the other things that the Arts Development Advisory Committee does quite early in the year is allocate funding for the Young Artist Legacy Awards. So thanks to the $1,400 that were allocated last year, a student was able to attend an international ballet workshop in Estonia. Another student went to a saxophone session at Domaine Forget in Quebec. Students attended the Children's Choir in Calgary and the Poetry Voice Nationals in Ottawa, helping fund a group to go there. So putting St. Albert artists on the map globally and nationally. A few updates on collections and maintenance management. An update on St. Albert the Great by Al Henderson. As we all remember, our initial beloved St. Albert was stolen in March 2023, and the city staff have been working really closely with the original artist Al Henderson to kind of bring back a new version or recast a version of this sculpture that can rejoin in their community. Because the sculpture had been done so long ago, the original molds and casts for the first bronze were no longer available. It's hard to store those things long term. And so the artist has crafted a reimagining, a revisioning of the same subject. And so we have the original, a photograph of the original piece there on the left, and sort of the template reimagining of the new work that will be coming and installed in St. Albert Place. Estimated date of completion for that will be in fall 2026. But the artist wanted to sort of reimagine the subject, tackling it again, recognizing sort of the loss of having this bird having now flown away and having the sculpture kind of looking upwards again, creating this beautiful relationship between the first sculpture and the reimagining, revisioning that's coming back to the community, giving us that connection we all miss with this young boy who was in our community for a long time, but not forgetting that original work that meant so much to people. And so that will, the recast and the recreation of this work will be funded through both the insurance that came through on the original artwork, as well as $30,000 that was approved from ADAC to be pulled from the Public Art Reserve. A few other things that happened last year is tribute to Sisters of Charity, Grey Nuns by Louis Lavoie was removed, as well as Colorfield 2 by Angela Grudelard and Healthy Communities by Bella Tuentino Busby. The first and third pieces have been, the first one was returned to the artists as per their wishes. The third was destroyed. So they were all three, those two were both deaccessioned from the collection. They weren't in good condition anymore. And so it was working in collaboration with the artists on what to do with these works, but they were officially removed from the collections because murals have lifespans. Unfortunately, they don't last forever, especially when they're outside in harsh Alberta winters. The middle piece, however, was still in quite good condition when it came off the wall, and so city staff have it safely stored in storage at the moment, and they're looking for a new suitable location to host this piece because it was in still quite good shape. So that's sort of your annual updates on maintenance and collections management. Now for the exciting things that come with more pictures. Sorry, is there questions or anything? Am I missing? I can't see most of your screen.
Those are good.
Okay. Excellent, sorry. As you probably have all had the opportunity to see, spring last year finally saw the Fowler Park Athletic mural come into the community, which was created by an artist who started at the beginning of her illustrations career, Kalina Henson, who also attended Sir Alexander Mackenzie School and Lauren Aikens when she was growing up in St. Albert. And so she's created this incredible mural that is along the running track at Fowler Athletic Park, and was there for some track and field events over the spring and summer. And it looks spectacular, and it looks really, really great in the space and brightens up the whole environment really beautifully. And you see a lot of people taking pictures and pointing out their favorite moments when you're in that area. And so that project was completed and installed last spring. The newest addition to our public art is the Downtown Banners project. And so these banners just went up. You would have seen color sort of reemerge into the downtown area and all the light standards over the last several weeks. It felt like springtime arrived and all the public art came with it. And so we have 3 local artists who have created 4 banners each. And this project was funded through some funds that were put aside in 2018 for diversity and inclusion initiatives within the city. And so the call for artists went out and was specifically looking for artists who were underrepresented in our collection, either through their age, race, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, socioeconomic status, geography, or citizenship status. And so the three artists that were selected were Unju Park, who has done sort of, I call them literary abstracts, because once you know what you're looking at, you can actually read them. They're Hanji characters, which are Korean, traditional Korean text, and they'll have these beautiful uplifting messages. We have Melanie Hassau, who's created mixed media paintings of birds and flowers, but all the flowers are actual pressed florals that were collected from the region. And Jasper June, who's an embroidery artist who created beautiful sort of collections and little pockets of ecosystems with flora, fauna, local birds. And so those were installed this spring, but the call for submissions in most of the selections are, I'll pull up pictures, nicer. The call for submissions went out last year, as well as the selections process, and so we were able to kind of get those all manufactured and installed with the springtime this year. So another public art project that's coming up, which you should notice shortly, is the Children's Festival. I believe there's been a few requests for participation from council. And so this is a new imagining of the visual arts elements for Children's Festival. And so artist Kelly Fraser has been invited to activate the interior and exterior of St. Albert Place by adding arts elements throughout the entire building. And so in the past, we've had major installations like Walk Walk Dance or Daedalum. And this year we're bringing in, the idea is to bring in a local or regional artist to create art all within St. Albert Place. It's publicly accessible, it's open to everybody to sort of add a lot of wonder and magic to the building itself. And so this was a $12,000 pull from the Public Art Reserve, but when it was first presented to council, people are very enthusiastic, and so it was recommended that $20,000 be set aside annually to sort of continue this project, allowing a lot of local artists to participate, and that would be from the Public Art Reserve as well. The BMX mural is coming up really soon, and so along Riel Drive, you might have noticed this concrete wall, and so there is a world-class BMX track that has joined our community, and it is on land that is leased to the BMX park, but it belongs to city property, or it belongs to the city and is leased to the BMX holders. And so we recognize that the wall of that major jump is a perfect place for a mural to be going in and added. And so an artist has been selected for this project. They will be doing some community engagement. So if you would like to go and paint and work with the artists, meet them, they'll be doing a community engagement project. I believe it's on May 23rd in the evening at Rotary Park, and sort of having some art activities up, having people sort of learn the process of what it takes to paint a mural, and have opportunities for the community to meet the artists, talk with them, share some of their ideas, and the artists will take a lot of that inspiration that they've learned, the people that they've met, as well as the people they've met at the BMX track, and design something brand new and specific for this space. And so that goal is to have this mural painted by the end of this summer, as the BMX park will be hosting a major competition in August, and we would like to show off not only our incredible track, our incredibly skilled athletes, and some very cool art all at the same time. Another project to keep your eye out for that has now gotten started is the transit project, which I affectionately call Art Buses. And so it's the second half of the diversity inclusion funding that was set aside in 2018. And so this project has set aside 2 city buses, which will be wrapped on the entire exterior with artwork, sort of similar to the vinyl wrap on Fowler Park, but it'll be the exterior of the buses. And the interior placards, so where those ads usually go, will also be artworks on the inside of the bus. So there'll be art inside and out. And so there's 2 artists who will be hired for this project. So there was a call that went out in February and closed at the end of March this year. And the selection committee met at the end of April to select 2 artists. And so next steps are also going to be that public engagement, having opportunities for the artists to meet the community, to ride the buses, to meet the transit staff, as well as work with a lot of the city staff and sort of help guide the project and develop brand new work that will be wrapping the exterior of the buses and filling the interiors of these 2. And that the hope for that project is to have it up and running, I believe, by the fall this year. And as we kind of whirlwind our way through the end of this annual report, we have sort of forward-looking projects, some multi-year projects that have been approved that will be going forward. The first of which is Elements Park. And so there's a climbing wall feature. So Elements is sort of up on the north end of the community. And there's a climbing wall feature that will be there. And so it was identified as a great opportunity to put a mosaic mural on the outside. And unlike painted murals, mosaic murals are incredibly durable. They last a lifetime. There's people who go touring all around the world to see mosaics that are thousands of years old. And so this we can safely call a permanent artwork for the collection. And so a call was put out for artists to propose ideas or put forward their credentials to add a mural to that outside of that climbing wall feature, which will be a really dramatic and wonderful entrance to the park, as well as sort of a destination feature within the community. And then the last major project that we're coming through will be the Red Willow West Meadowview Phase 3. And so this project is to embed an artist or artist team onto sort of the design and planning committee for that Phase 3 project to identify areas, not only to identify multiple spots that could benefit from public art along that new Phase 3 of the trail system, as well as thinking through how we can sort of activate the history of that area. So both the Indigenous and settler history, the cultural history, as well as the ecological and natural history of that space. And so having an artist who's able to kind of gather up all of that information, all of that history, and translate it into several public art pieces that could go throughout. And so the budgets that you see on both the Elements Park and the Red Willow Park in the report are comprehensive. So that includes everything from the artist fees, installation, sort of their per diems, schedules, everything. So that is the complete budget for that project, which hopefully which will be more than enough going forward and bring some lovely art to our community. And then the very end is where the Public Art Reserve is currently sitting. Sorry, that was fast. That was a lot. Do you have questions?
That was excellent. Yeah, first of all, Emily, thank you. You're obviously super passionate about public art in St. Albert. And this report was very large. You have had a very busy year. I see Councilor Bermansky has a question, so I'll go to her first.
I don't have a question, Mayor. I just have a comment. I'm just so.
Okay, I'll get to you on debate. Any questions?
No?
I guess.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
Just the very last thing. So we have, my understanding when we had budget last was that all of the funds had been allocated. But now I've seen that we have, unless I'm misreading it, 280,000 for new and 642,000 for maintenance, which is like almost, it's like $900,000, right? So do we actually still have 900,000 uncommitted in the art reserve right now?
I think the 600's committed, right, for me.
What, it just says uncommitted funds.
Let's say uncommitted. Okay. Is Elizabeth online? Who can answer that?
And so my understanding is like the maintenance funds are sort of set aside in reserve. Uncommitted might have been a bad choice of words on my part. And so the maintenance funds are sort of those ones set aside as budgetary from previous projects, like a chunk of money is always set aside for future maintenance. So when things come up or ongoing maintenance happens, that's sort of sitting there and ready to go. And the acquisitions and public art projects is with the funds that were allocated at budget, because there was an input that was done in December into the public art reserve that was approved. And so this is where the fund is sitting as of today, rather than as of the end of 2024, because with the funds we allocated for Elements and Red Willow at the BMX Park in December, that did drain that right down to nearly nothing. And so this is with the allocation that was put in this year as part of the 2025 the budget you did in December.
Elizabeth, do you have anything to add?
I understand it now. I'm okay on
I think
that.
she's got it. Yeah.
Elizabeth, I had one more question. So, and I'm thinking that might be your answer as opposed to the chair's, do we have a formula for how we're figuring out the maintenance number? Like, cause 600,000 is no chump change, right? So like, is there some kind of method to how we're figuring that out?
Yeah, so we maintain, our register maintains a collection record and condition report of the 300 plus pieces in our collection. 10% of any new acquisition is put into the maintenance reserve for future maintenance, and depending on the medium that the public art piece is in, sometimes the amount required is greater than that. This is the first time in many years that we've had a register doing like a significant amount of maintenance. I'm expecting that number you'll start to see further depletion of it as we improve our asset management standards, but also we're getting an increasing amount of large sculptures and large works out in our community. So again, it's a percentage that we put aside knowing what the maintenance over 10, 25, 50, and 100 years will be, depending on the medium of the collection item. So
That makes
yes,
sense.
there's a
Okay.
formula.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. I just didn't know what it was. Okay, so thank you for that. That's all I
I
had.
thought you were segmenting it into the next topic.
Asset
The
management.
end of is asset management.
This is for Elizabeth or Emily, but the chronological order of the report, the first, big chunk was about the de-ascension of 3 different murals. And Elizabeth's walking. You're gonna make us all dizzy, Elizabeth. Which I understand, and then, it says in the report that murals are temporary, they don't fare well in the weather, et cetera. But then as you go further into the report, we're just adding more of the same. So when it comes to choice of medium, maybe this is for you, Elizabeth. We did the BMX track or we did the Fowler track. Now we're doing BMX with paintings and murals. And are we shying away? You just said we're adding sculptures, but I don't know what we're adding other than the new St. Albert. Are we shying away from the sculptures because of the theft possibility? Because I do know that the public likes the stuff they can interact with. The ones out behind St. Albert Place, Walk Dance was interactive art. Like those are the kind of things I think we get excited about. And so I'm just worried that we're adding more temporary.
Absolutely not. So we're just trying to find a good balance between the things that will continue to provide new opportunities for artists in our community, vibrant locations to be able to refresh what the look and feel is. We're using new materials. So when we talk about things like Fowler Athletic Track, the reason that it's a temporary art piece, like 5 years, is because of it being put up in a vinyl wrap rather than paint, which would have a 10-year lifespan, but a significant increase in the amount of annual maintenance required to get it to that 10-year lifespan. We are also looking to introduce things that the community can engage with and have those I think about like hide and seek out on the front plaza, those experiences with. But right now, the conversations with arts development and also with some of the partners and locations and sites that we have identified is how we can enhance existing infrastructure and add art elements into those like everyday things that are being utilized, as opposed to having something that's bolt on or standalone. It's not to shift away from the risk of theft. It's simply an opportunity to integrate our artwork more into the experience. And I think Emily could probably speak to a little bit more around some of the committee's recommendations there as well.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, there's I agree. Like their painted murals have a lifespan, like they only last so long outside. I feel like the ones in St. Albert get a little gold star for lasting quite a lot longer than the 10 years that's usually an estimate. But when we say mural, we're also not all of them are painted. And so we're looking at Elements Park. Technically it's a mural because it's on a wall, but it's mosaic tile. So that'll last for a really, really long time. And so we're able to kind of very safely say that that'll be a permanent thing. And that's also going to be an interactive one because half the mural or the half of the work is like a climbing feature, like a play structure for children. And the back half of it will be this mural element that will last for a really long time. The vinyl wrap, I remember when we first selected the Fowler Park project, for example, people were really excited about that one because it was really accessible to a lot of artists within our community, because you didn't have to be properly trained like mural artists like that. Putting it on a vinyl sticker meant that anybody who had an art practice could photograph their work and be able to put it out onto that space. And the cost for that work was also a lot lower than something like an Elements Park, which is it's a big ticket item. Those permanent, long-lasting ones cost a lot more. Whereas with Fowler, the conversation was around, okay, if we make something that's temporary that lasts about 5 years, in 5 years we get to show off another artist. We get to hire somebody new. It's a lower cost way to kind of keep refreshing this running track and be able to hire and work with a lot of artists within our community. Because the more specific and the larger scale the public art project gets, the smaller the pool of people who have the skill sets required to be able to pull off artworks like that. So your pool of large scale mosaic artists is a lot smaller than the pool of artists whose work can be photographed and added to banners or to vinyl wraps, for example. And the BMX park, looking at that one, it's even though it will be a temporary sort of 5-year piece or 10-year piece, sorry, that wall structure, when you look at it, there's not a lot of other types of art that would work there. And it's one of those perfect spots for a mural because it faces onto the road. When you're driving down, you kind of see this gray structure. You're like, if you don't know what's there, I wonder, it's like, why is there a bunker on Riel Road now? But being able to add an artwork that location just wouldn't be suitable for anything other than a mural, whether it's a vinyl wrap, whether it's painted, it's flat, it's tall, it's vertical. And so something like a sculpture just wouldn't work well there. But with artists being embedded into these future projects, sort of something like Red Willow, and coming in very early into that project, then we can listen to a lot of community members and develop something that's specific for that space. And so with Red Willow, we don't know exactly what we'll be getting, but there's going to be so much opportunity for the artists to work with the people involved with the project, with city staff, with the community, to learn about what that space means to everybody and build something that has that possibility. Will it be a stone sculpture? Will it be something else? We don't know yet. But it's this engagement element that's been added to a lot of these projects gives that opportunity for the artist to get to know the community and be able to build something and create something that feels very specific and resonant to hear.
Cool. I mean, that makes sense. It just, I'm looking forward to more variety, I guess, in mediums as we go forward. I am looking forward to the buses. I think that's going to be fantastic. It's not really interactive, but it'll be nice addition to our community. I saw Andrea pop on. Andrea, were you good? I think maybe Emily answered exactly what you were going to say. She's gone.
Yeah,
There we go.
I'm here. Thank you. I don't have the opportunity to put my hand up.
We can't hear you, Andrea. Why?
Sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, no, I was, Emily did address a lot of what I was going to say is that,
Okay.
you know, some of these new works, Element Park and Red Willow, will produce works that are permanent. And I think, you know, there are works in the collection that maybe we're not familiar with that are permanent and of different medium. For example, White Spruce Grey Nuns Park has 3 pieces that are pretty permanent works within the park. So I think, you know, it's just an exciting opportunity to have all of these different works happening. And the length of time, Emily also addressed, those murals will last, you know, 5 to 10 years. And those are opportunities to continually have new artists participate in and get people within the community active and engaged in their surroundings and art within their community.
Okay, cool.
Great.
I think it was Elizabeth that mentioned hide and seek. When you guys leave the building, you'll notice hide and seek is gone, but not stolen. It's being repaired, but that's one of my favorites in the whole community. Honestly, I love it. All right, go ahead. You got a question?
Yeah, quick question. How long do the bus wraps last?
5 years.
5? Was it 5 years?
Yeah. And it depends on how they're cared for as well. I know that the estimate's like sort of 5 years minimum, but some of the wraps they did in Edmonton and in other communities are so beloved by transit staff that they take really good care of them.
I'll have to, I'd like to add to that. There's still a garbage truck wrapped in Edmonton, and it's been 12 years.
There you
So
go.
they can last longer than we imagine. So that's nice.
Well, we need to wrap our garbage trucks.
Yeah, they can be fun.
Big Oscar the Grouch on there. Awesome. Okay. Shelley, you wanted to make a comment, so why don't I go to you? Is there a motion on this one? I don't think so. No. But I'll go to you now for just a comment.
Okay, there is a motion as well, just
It's
as
okay.
information, yes. So I did want to comment, this
No,
is,
there's no motion.
a lot of these projects have been 4 years in the working, so it's been, several arts committees, but Emily's been there, strong and true, and she's so, we're just so grateful to have Emily as a chair. She's so creative and passionate and thorough and everything that's great in a chair on the committee, and everyone who works in the arts department and the whole team from the city, the ideas that have been coming forward and the accuracy and the new policy. And I'm just really, really proud of all the work that's come out of the art and all the beauty that's come to the city in so many different ways. And it's exciting time. So I'm just so proud of the whole group and appreciate it so much. That's all I had to say.
All right. Okay, thank you, Emily. Yeah, there is no motion, so this is just for us to hear, and so we will now move on. Thanks, Emily. We're gonna move to 6.1, and Donnie, I have you down as the presenter. Obviously, Joanne is part of it too. Do you want to introduce everyone else at the table? Okay, go ahead.
It is. Okay, good. All right. Good morning, members of the Standing Committee of the Whole. For the record, my name is Donnie George, Director of Engineering, and please allow me to introduce the Asset Management Hub team members within engineering: Jordan Betteridge, Manager, Asset Management, Land and Integrated Infrastructure Services, or AMLIS in short, and Lorraine Doblango, Senior Asset Management Specialist, and of course, you all know Joanne Graham, Director of Information Technology. Engineering and IT will be co-presenting and introducing this topic for you today by providing an overview of asset management program at the city and the linkage to enterprise maintenance management, asset management, in short, EMMAM, otherwise EMAM.
Okay.
So per the agenda outlined in front of you, AM Hub team, who are the subject matter experts, will present the first part of this presentation, which includes the overarching asset management topics. We will refer to asset management as AM throughout this presentation. Starting with what is asset management and its benefits. This outlines why we should be conducting asset management. Next is the asset management framework at the city. This is the city's high-level approach describing how we are developing the AM system. Next, we would be having a quick overview of our AM maturity, which we use to gauge our current state status and provided the guidance on which focus areas we need to improve. Our asset management roadmap then ties it all together, showing progress to date at the program level and the critical timing of the EMAM project. After this brief asset management overview, we will pass the presentation to Joanne, who will then provide more details specifically on the EMAM project under the context of the city's AM program. We will be concluding the presentation with risks of not proceeding with the EMAM implementation and will present the project budget required for this very transformational project. I will now pass on to Jordan to take us through the next few slides.
Maybe if I could, apologize for interrupting. Would you prefer questions as we go or questions? This is a pretty long, complex
It is.
issue, so yeah.
Currently have planned it towards the end, but it doesn't hurt to stop us.
You can wait. Okay.
Great, thanks, Donnie, and good morning to the members of the Standing Committee of the Whole. Firstly, let's start with asset management. What is asset management? So asset management at its heart is the balancing of performance, risk, and cost when maintaining our assets. It's about making the right decisions for maintenance and renewals at the right time. This allows us to use our assets at the highest value while also providing the lowest total cost of ownership. Residents count on local governments to provide core services that support their quality of life and meet their needs, as you know. These services are unattainable without quality infrastructure in place, whether it's the roads to promote efficient travel or utility pipes to provide safe drinking water. Municipal infrastructure plays an important role in the delivery of services. As an asset owner, we're responsible for the state of our assets. An interesting statistic I want to share is that 60% of all the core public infrastructure is owned or managed at the local government level. That's a lot of infrastructure. On the other hand, it has been reported by Alberta Munis that Alberta is facing a $30 billion infrastructure deficit. So it's prudent that we utilize good asset management practice to maintain our asset portfolio to ensure those assets can continue to safely and reliably be used to deliver services and avoid downloading an aging infrastructure system and that financial burden onto future generations. So asset management at its core is a common sense and systematic way of looking after everything we own, services, and can stay reliable and affordable. So St. Albert owns $1.4 billion in value of various types of assets. We need to carry this significant portfolio of assets to manage the wide range of services we provide. There are numerous benefits of asset management for St. Albert. From a financial perspective, it's widely cited that $1 spent on timely maintenance can save $5 in reconstruction costs. Proactive maintenance is almost always cheaper than reactive repairs. The city also relies on grants to support and help fund a number of our capital projects. Recently, grant applications have begun asking for details about the municipality's asset management programs as a criteria within these applications. This criteria is so provincial and federal governments are assured that any projects they fund would eventually be well managed throughout its entire life cycle. Asset management can provide factual data to support investment decisions. Data-backed decisions help build trust with the community, and we can make better decisions on how to allocate our sacred tax dollars where it's needed most. Currently, city allocates an annual placeholder percentage of 1.5% of tax revenue each year towards our RMR reserves. With the implementation of the EMM, it's expected that this percentage will vary based on more accurate analytics derived from real-time data and predictive models. Over time, with more data, the city expects to flatten the curve of financial imbalance with accurate future investment requirements. Residents will also realize the benefits of an asset management program. Asset management provides transparency and confidence on how we spend our tax dollars. A question we hear is, when are we going to fix this road? Asset management answers this. Asset management gives us the data we need to use the budgets to achieve the best results. It provides us long-term forecasts to determine how much we need to invest to keep our assets at a condition the community expects. Proper asset management has an indirect benefit on resident satisfaction. Residents receive more reliable services with fewer unexpected disruptions or emergencies. The importance of asset management is reflected in Council's strategic plan. Under the financial sustainability priority, it targets responsible and transparent fiscal management, decision-making, and long-term financial sustainability, which are the pillars of asset management. So I'll now pass it over to Lorraine to walk us through the next few slides.
Thanks, Jordan. The AIM framework was developed using the ISO 55000 AIM standard and the International Infrastructure Management Manual, which is a top-down hierarchy. The framework provides a visual of how we structure asset management throughout the city. It is a system of interrelated elements that ensures that the city's strategic framework and objectives translate into on-the-ground operational activities. Starting from the top and identified in the orange box is the city's strategic framework. The city follows an established framework to align the city's strategic and business planning, budgeting, management, and reporting practices and processes to achieve outcomes established in the organizational vision, mission, and values, the council's strategic plan, and the corporate business plan. The city's asset management framework is guided by and in alignment with the city's strategic framework. Moving down, we have the AM Council policy, which has been approved and that sets the intentions and direction of the city as formally expressed by council. It sets the foundation with which the structure of asset management is built. Next, the AM Committee Directive establishes the roles and responsibilities of the Asset Management Committee, which provides high-level operational direction for the asset management program. Moving to the yellow circular part of the graphic, we have the strategic elements of the framework, which consist of the State of Infrastructure Report, the Asset Management Strategy, and the Strategic Asset Management Plan, also known as the SAP. Moving to the green circular part of the graphic, we have the operational elements, which consists of the tactical asset management plans, the project execution, and database update. Within the blue circular part of the graphic is the performance evaluation and improvement section, where we evaluate how well we are doing in achieving the asset management objectives and outcomes identified in the asset management strategy, the SAMP, and the business unit tactical asset management plans. Performance evaluation ensures continuous improvement within the framework. In essence, planned activities at the department business unit level for an asset need to be in alignment to the city's strategic framework, the AM policy, and then once in place, the AM strategy and the SAP. Risk management is part of every level and every element of the asset management. The city has an integrated risk management framework, which provides a standardized process for staff to follow. So this is where we are today. This AM framework has changed over time, and with ongoing improvements, this framework will continue to be a living document. It is noted that some asset stewarding groups are further ahead in their asset management journey and are currently doing some of the work identified in the circular part of the graphic. As shown in this illustration, the asset management operates like a hub and spoke, with the corporate AM team as the hub and asset stewards within each department being the spokes. The corporate AM team is currently embedded in engineering services and is identified in the middle. Within each department, asset stewards have been identified for each asset portfolio. The success of the AM program is dependent on many stakeholders throughout the organization doing additional AM work on top of their regular responsibilities. The MAM will improve efficiencies and productivity. A total of 29 asset portfolios have been identified for all departments, as shown in the graphic. It is important that these portfolios be part of the same MAM software so that efficiencies can be realized and consistency can be obtained. In addition, the MAM will support improved evidence-based decision-making and sustainable service delivery. In 2019, a maturity matrix was developed to measure the existing state of asset management practice within each asset stewarding team. It was based on industry standards developed by the International Infrastructure Management Manual, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Urban Systems Asset Smart 2, and modified for use in St. Albert. This matrix was developed to objectively, transparently, and repeatedly assess the asset management practice of our organization. 5 broad categories, which consist of 36 questions in total for the maturity asset assessment, included asset inventory, information procedures, physical condition assessment procedures, people, and lastly, software will be the focus throughout this presentation. The software criteria had the lowest overall maturity for all asset portfolios across the organization. The maturity assessments involve questions surrounding what software is being used for maintenance. What about capital management, project management, and energy management? Another consideration is if the software was interoperable. In other words, do they talk to each other? Can information be easily transferred from one system to another? This criteria is extremely important as software can expedite processes and improve efficiencies. Proper asset management tools can easily raise the level of AM maturity across the organization. Here's a spreadsheet that details a deeper dive into the software maturity assessments. It's not so important to actually be able to read what's on it, but what is important is to identify the red and pink highlighted scores indicating very low maturity. Most of the white boxes on here actually are not applicable for that for that criteria. In particular, red shows that for many of the asset portfolios, there is no existing software for either a computerized maintenance management system, capital planning, energy management, or project management. Under the interoperability column, it is shown by the vast number of red boxes that almost all of the asset portfolios are not able to communicate or share information with other software. This can be a problem for conducting proper life cycling, maintaining data integrity, and extracting accurate total cost of ownership, which ultimately drives informed decision-making. The pink boxes show only minor improvements to the software maturity level and are still considered to be quite low. Overall, the overwhelming lack of AM software and its inability to communicate and transfer AM information was the biggest gap and greatest weakness identified when conducting the AM maturity assessments. Once the AM is implemented, this graphic will look very different and will be a sea of green. In addition to the city's internal recommendation of an EMM/AM software, Ernst & Young's operational fiscal review in 2021 also identified the need for investing in a singular AM system as highlighted in the yellow text on this slide. The graphic shown here is a summary of the software journey to where we are now. We first started with the AM policy before the AM hub was formed. Then the AM framework was developed, which has been described in a previous slide. Early on, an AM maturity assessment was completed, and based on the assessment, a finalized AM gap analysis document was created. Based on that gap analysis, maturity improvement plans were developed for asset portfolio, and at that time, software was a major concern. Based on that finding, it was decided to investigate the implementation of a software solution. While going down that path, it was identified that a CMMS was not what the city needed, and that a solution that could do more than just maintenance was necessary. That is when the EMM/AM journey began. We'll be moving into EMM/AM presentation next and want to close the asset management informational slides with these key takeaways. St. Albert has a diverse portfolio of assets that are growing larger and more complex each year. As a core priority that scored very low in a maturity assessment is our lack of a proper software tool to manage these assets. As an organization, we are past the point of using non-spatial Excel spreadsheets to track the tens of thousands of assets we own. To ensure we can continue in our asset management development, the EMM/AM software will be the foundation to allow us to track, analyze, run scenarios, plan financials, and prioritize projects, which is the cornerstone of conducting asset management. I do want to add that AM is really all about continuous improvements. And without an EMM/AM software, we are in a holding pattern. Is that where the city really wants to be? And lastly, we will now pass the presentation over to Joanne to speak about the EMM/AM software.
Thank you, Lorraine. If you recall in our strategic planning session in January of this year, I gave you a preview of what the enterprise maintenance management and asset management platform, which is the core of this project, and the underpinning technology needed to execute our asset management program as described by my colleagues in engineering. So you may recall what we affectionately call the bubble slide, and I will take you through that this morning to refresh your memory as to what we are going to be doing. So let us start with exactly what it is that we are doing. The project to implement the city's MM platform is truly transformational, as my colleagues have said. Its primary objectives are to optimize and safeguard our municipal infrastructure assets, to mature our asset management program and optimize capital asset planning by providing our asset stewards with the tools they need, to deliver an integrated technology platform to improve operational efficiency, service delivery, and total cost of ownership, and then finally to deliver an integrated public and internal portal for service requests and engagement. So to achieve these objectives, the platform implementation is going to provide data and technology with a massive effort and scope that involves all city departments, with the heavy lifting coming from public operations, recreation and parks, community services, engineering, and IT. So as you've seen before in January, this graphic depicts the city's technology, the applications and the data that are involved in the project. You see here the applications that are either going to be replaced or integrated with the new platform. So I'll draw your attention to the lower right, where we see multiple and siloed maintenance management applications currently used by branches within public operations, as well as recreation and parks. These applications will be replaced by the unified platform that we see in the lower left. Looking a little bit up above this, we see the multiple and siloed asset capital planning applications that are currently being used for facility, streets, and utility asset classes. These will be replaced with this platform. Just above this in the upper right are the asset capital planning tools that we will be integrating with the platform. At the core of our platform, and shown in the middle in purple, is our centralized asset register, which will contain information about where all of our assets are located, their characteristics, and their conditions. This register will be updated in real time as assets are created, maintained, and replaced. In the top center in green are the corporate applications for human resources and financial management, which will be integrated with this platform. And lastly, on the far right in orange, we are seeing the disjoint applications that are part of GIS mapping, many of which will be replaced based on the functions of the new platform. So by replacing as many disparate and disjoint applications that we can, and by integrating the remainder, we will create operational efficiencies, reduce manual and duplicated efforts, and improve the quality and availability of asset information, cost information, and spatial location data. This will enable more timely and informed decision-making, especially in capital planning and lifecycle asset management, as well as risk-based, accurate TCA reporting, and sustainable infrastructure for the city. Now that we've talked about what we're doing, I want to give you a brief overview of what the platform will do to enable asset lifecycle management for the city. Although made up of a number of components, as we saw in the previous slide, fundamentally, the platform enables operations and maintenance management that we see on the right, and asset management that we see on the left. At a very high level for operations and maintenance management, it enables reactive maintenance, as the city crews respond to unexpected issues, proactive preventative maintenance, inspections, condition-based maintenance based on those inspections, and assigning conditions and maintenance scores that then provide the reporting and analytics needed to feed into asset management. On the asset management side, the components of this platform provide a number of sophisticated, predictive, data-driven modeling and scenario capabilities, such as lifecycle modeling, risk modeling, predictive analytics, that will all be used to generate trade-off analysis and planning scenarios that ultimately result in the optimized program development for capital planning and lifecycle management for the day-to-day operations in the RMR program. These programs are then used in operations and maintenance management, and the asset lifecycle continues. All of this, of course, is to enable the city to achieve its organizational objectives and to both align with and be driven by asset management policies and strategies. Through the functions of these advanced tools, asset stewards are enabled and empowered to improve the accuracy and availability of real-time asset data, strengthen risk management, optimize lifecycle costs, and ensure long-term sustainability. Through improved predictive analytics and reporting, departments will gain a comprehensive view of assets, supporting evidence-based decisions that align with your strategic direction and service level expectations. Enhanced maintenance management can increase asset uptime, support labor and supply chain planning, streamline processes, increase productivity, provide enhanced service levels across departments. I hope that this information helps you visualize the extensive scope of this project in terms of technology, capabilities, and organizational involvement, and the transformational impact it's going to have on our city. This transformation is critical to enhancing operational efficiency, asset stewardship, service delivery, and to enabling the asset management program that we've been describing for you this morning. So now that we have talked about what we're doing, let's talk about when we're doing it. That is the timeline. Given the scale and scope of this project, we chose to take some learnings from the engineering and construction world and apply them to the project. From 2022 onward, we have been extensively working with internal stakeholders to understand exactly what the current state is and what the city needs from the software to enable asset management and maintenance management programs. This is similar to the feasibility and design stages of an infrastructure project. As we entered into negotiations with the top proponent, we took an approach similar to the IPD method that was used recently for city infrastructure projects. That is, we brought together early on the key parties needed to deliver this integrated platform in a collaborative approach to achieve a holistic and sustainable design and identify as many issues and opportunities as we could at this stage. We know this approach takes time and has taken time, but we know that it has been and will be time well spent. Now, as we look forward to our plans to 2025 and beyond, the negotiation with the top proponent is complete, and pending approval of the revised project budget, we will proceed with contract signing and a project kickoff in July. The implementation will follow the stages that you see here over the next 5 to 6 years, implementing both asset management and maintenance management capabilities in the departments that are responsible for maintaining these asset classes. So in stage 1, we are going to address the bulk of the asset classes for transportation, streets and sidewalks, solid waste, public works inventory, parks and usage areas, trees and horticulture. As well, we are going to be implementing capital asset planning for all asset classes and a service request portal for all asset classes that can be used internally by our staff and, of course, by the public. Stage 2 puts the focus on our public works fleet, equipment, and inventory. In stage 3, we'll be addressing the utility asset classes for water, wastewater, and storm. And last but not least, in stage 4, we'll be looking at the asset classes for our municipal and recreational facilities, our transit fleet, and the art and artifacts, very timely considering the presentation we had earlier today. Of course, with a project of this type of scope, we have to have organizational change management throughout all stages. As well, we'll be working to integrate and migrate all of our spatial assets and condition data. I will now turn it over to Donnie to discuss the risks faced by the city if we do not proceed with this project.
Thank you, Joanne. If the EMAM project does not proceed, the city will assume risk identified in the agenda report, most of which are related to not achieving the benefits and capabilities that Jordan and Lorraine and Joanne described earlier. These risks related to asset management, asset maintenance, productivity, and service delivery are strategic, financial, and operational in nature. If these risks are realized, what will that mean for the city? Strategically, maintaining the current state limits the city's asset management maturity at the organizational level and prevents the realization of process improvements and efficiencies. Without optimized lifecycle management, we will see reduced asset performance, driving reduced operational efficiency and increased costs. Inadequate tools further compromise the city's ability to manage risk, ensure compliance, and align infrastructure decisions with strategic priorities. Financially, if we do not move from our somewhat reactive approach to asset management to a proactive one, lifecycle costs will increase as reactive maintenance persists, diverting funds to emergency fixes instead of proactive planning. By continuing to plan the RMAR program without the data-driven modeling and scenarios provided by the new platform, we risk misallocating funds leading to financial inefficiencies, that is, not getting the best bang for our RMAR buck at the organizational level, although we may be making good decisions at each asset level. Additionally, the inability to track total cost of ownership due to unavailable or incomplete data undermines informed decision-making across all stages of the asset lifecycle, affecting financial planning and sustainability. Operationally, the risks of not proceeding include operational inefficiency, increased cost, poor asset data quality, inefficient maintenance, and limited technology integration. I will try and elaborate on each of those briefly. Because asset management currently relies on spreadsheets, siloed tools, fragmented data sources, staff spend more time on manual tasks, reducing productivity, creating data inconsistencies, increasing costs, and increasing the risk of errors and inefficiencies. This also degrades asset quality data, which leads to decisions being made with outdated or incomplete information. As a result, the city experiences more reactive repairs and service disruptions in short or long term. The inability to clearly report on asset condition without thoughtful allocation of funds to collect those data further prevents proactive maintenance, compounding reactive responses and increasing operational distractions. Additionally, the poor integration with GIS, finance, and HR systems reduces productivity and cross-departmental collaboration. With respect to service delivery risk, the city faces significant cost and service delivery consequences if current conditions persist. Without improved forecasting and integrated systems, the city faces growing infrastructure deficits, increased service disruptions, limited capacity to scale with growth, and rising technology maintenance and support costs. Reliance on reactive maintenance heightens the risk of asset failures and service disruptions, undermining reliability with the public. The lack of effective forecasting will increase the infrastructure renewal backlog, leading to higher long-term costs. The inability of current systems to scale with city's growing asset base and population will limit adaptability and hinder the city's capacity to deliver consistent and responsive services. Fragmented and siloed systems will increase technology maintenance and support expenses due to inefficiencies and duplication. Overall, realizing this risk will result in higher cost, inefficiencies, and challenges across all areas. Staff costs increase due to inefficient manual processes, duplicated work, and time spent correcting data errors. Asset maintenance costs are higher as a result of reactive maintenance, premature asset failures, and poor resource allocation. Asset management at the organizational level becomes suboptimal because it is undermined by low data quality, limited real-time visibility into asset condition, and reduced ability to plan strategically or implement best practices. I will now pass on to Joanne to conclude.
Thanks, Donnie. So, as I hope you can see today, a great deal of care and collaboration on the part of all stakeholders has developed the project scope and an implementation schedule that we shared with you today, as well as the project budget represented in this motion. Administration's recommended motion before you is that you recommend Council approves the revised charter for the project in order to increase the project budget from 1.4 million to $6.5 million. This increase of 5.1 million is required to complete this transformative project as described in the charter and presented to you today. Although significant, the project budget represents 0.48%, that is less than 1/2 of 1% of the $1.4 billion of depreciated value of the city assets that it will be used to manage and protect. As my colleagues from engineering have described, this software is a critically enabling component of the asset management program for the city. It's needed to mature the program, to provide holistic life cycle management, mitigate the risks that Donnie has outlined for you, and enable effective service delivery that balances performance, risk, and affordability. As we progress through the 4 stages of project implementation, this platform will transform how the city departments work together using integrated systems and data to optimize our asset maintenance and asset management to ready St. Albert for now and for the future. So that concludes our presentation this morning, and we're very pleased to accept questions and comments.
If I could just offer maybe a closing comment, Mayor, before we go. So thanks to the team. You know, I think as you look at this, it's important to consider where St. Albert is in terms of our evolution as a city. So that this is not an insignificant budgetary amount, right? And so I'm sure there are lots of questions that the team will field. But as we look at a city of 72,000, rapidly growing toward 100,000, right on the cusp of that mid-size, I think, to large city, we need to evolve our processes. And this, I would offer, is a bit of a foundational construct that will inform decision making. There's a little bit of you got to spend money to make money, and using the old adage on this, there's an upfront cost that over time will mitigate. And I think that was spelled out in the risk piece. But I just wanted to offer, from a city perspective, I think this is an important. This is a timely fashion. If you don't fund this, as an example, we'll be okay, or we'll be okay next year. But I would offer that infrastructure deficit, that deficit of informed decision-making will continue to increase over time till some point in time where we're going to have to address some form of thing like this. And so that's not meant to paint you into a corner by any stretch of the imagination. There's certainly time, but it is timely, I guess, is what I would offer.
Should you use the word transformational?
Yes.
Hey, I see a couple hands up on the screen, and then I'll go to Ken and Mike. Everyone's got questions, so we'll start with you, Shelley.
Okay, I think Wes had his hand up before me, but so I'm willing to let him go first.
Being a gentleman, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for this presentation. The questions I had is with the AM platform, you said it was the preferred proponent, and how many different ones did you look at? Why was this the preferred, and did they all take 5 to 6 years to implement?
So maybe before you answer, I'd just offer, I think we can answer broadly. If you want specifics, we may have to go in camera.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Broadly is fine.
So certainly we put out an RFP in 2023 and had a number of proponents. The actual number escapes me, but I believe it was in the order of about 8. We went through a very extensive public procurement process. From those 8, we had a number of mandatory requirements that needed to be met. That allowed us to work towards our top proponent. Once we had the top proponent identified, we went through a series of 4 days of demonstrations with involving up to 40 staff at the City of St. Albert, because it was very important for us to ensure that this was going to have that enterprise scope that we needed. And then from there went into the negotiations, which went over the course of about 6 to 8 weeks to get to the point where we are today.
Okay, and so my question related to that is, why is the, software is an ever depleting asset, as we see, we're ending the one that we had prior and we're always ending software updates, but why 5 to 6 years for implementation? Why is it so drawn out?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. So because of the scope and the number of individuals involved, we need to take a staged approach to ensure success. It is just to be simply, it is far too big to try to do a big bang across the entire organization. So the staging that we chose was based on both the readiness of the areas to make the change, how they work together, and to get us off of our current softwares as quickly as possible. So, but primarily it was simply due to the size and scope. It simply could not be done in one stage.
Okay.
And maybe Joanne, sorry, Councillor, if I could just offer as well, I think it's absolutely right. The other piece is it's important to remember that the software in and of itself is not an end unto itself, right? It's a tool that enables the overall maintenance or asset management piece. And so this is big, and we got to get it right the first time, because if we don't, right, I think the results are probably speak for themselves, but could be catastrophic.
Right, and $6.5 million is a pretty big price for
Absolutely.
software. Could you stop at stage 1, like say, you run into issues or it's not quite what you thought it would be, or are you committed to all the stages with the implementation of this project?
So it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to stop, because if we were to stop at the end of stage 1, we would have a part of the public operations department working in the new software, another part that works together out on the streets every day, working in another part. So it would be quite chaotic, arguably worse than the situation that we have now. Because of that, that is exactly why we have taken such a long time and taken such a high degree of due diligence to work with the top vendor to do the best that we can to ensure the success of this implementation and to give all stakeholders, all departments involved, that sense of confidence that this is the best software to meet our needs.
Okay, and then I had another question. It was mentioned that, often we're leaning towards reactive maintenance, yet when we see our 10-year plans and such, it does have, planned maintenance and structured replacement times and such. So I don't feel that we're operating without any plan, but correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
I think I'll turn that over to Donnie.
I can answer that. Councillor Bremenski, we do have a plan, but the plan can be done better in a collaborated platform, which is the missing piece now. So each asset group does their own capital planning. I don't think we have a 10-year plan. We have it maximum 3 years. So we can definitely, with the additional platform implementation, we can take it to multiple years down the road. And the fact that missing today is the collaboration across different asset groups, and then the high level view across on our radar, the integrated asset condition, asset data, which all feeds into creating that plan better.
Okay, and then the productivity factor, is that just because each department won't be, they're just simply putting forward an entry into the central database? Is that where you're planning productivity?
Yeah, so productivity is in 2 areas. It's the activity of asset management also will increase the productivity. For example, right now people use spreadsheets across different asset groups and it's siloed. So if you have a centralized platform that looks at all the asset data, everybody gets to make a decision better, and the right hand will know what the left hand is doing, so to speak, right? So that's kind of the analogy that I can put out there. On the capital planning side, we do have examples where we have gone out and done our road work. And then the other group thought, oh, the road work is done. Now we can arrange a painting to be done. And in fact, that has happened. And painting crew went ahead and did the job. And then we realized, oh, wait a second, we haven't done the top lift yet. So there's a lost productivity cost and all that. So we can pull up similar examples across the organization that could be eliminated if we have a centralized platform that everybody gets to view the real-time data. That's the key part here. In terms of optimizing how we function within the organization across the board.
Okay, and my last question, sorry, team, that the Alberta Municipalities report of the $30 billion infrastructure deficit, when was that report put together? How recent is it?
That would be at least 4 years old.
Yeah, it's been referenced even as late as last year, or even in January this year, it's been referenced. So
I was using those numbers. So when I was president in 21, 30 billion. Yeah,
exactly. So out of date. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
I think it's just gotten worse since then, though. Yeah.
We think, yeah.
Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A wonderful presentation and exciting to be sure. If you could go to your bubble slide, where you had the integration of all the different elements that are going to be included in this. Had the one that I'm talking about, it has HRIS and the financials at the top. One, I think, just before this slide. Yes. So do I understand correctly that the platform that you're investigating for application here in St. Albert actually includes those 2 green bubbles at the top?
Thank you for that question. No, those bubbles at the top, and you are seeing this is the correct slide you're referring to?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so you'll see a note under there that says integration. So those are not being replaced by the platform, but we will have a very robust integrations between our current HRIS system and our current financial system with the new platform. So that is going to allow employee information and rates, et cetera, to move from our HR system into this platform for accurate labor costing. And it's going to allow all maintenance cost information to be integrated with our financial system so that we can get as accurate as possible total cost of ownership for TCA calculations within our financial system. So that's an integration.
Is there a risk then, like if you talk about integration and now you've got two, I'm assuming two different software programs talking to each other, is there a risk of that whole integration program sort of putting a spanner in the works of the entire program because there's an integration problem with this HRIS and the financial modules that perhaps speak a different language?
So integrations certainly are some of the more complex components of a platform such as this, no doubt. The vendor that we are engaging with to develop the integrations has previously created an integration to our financial system. So we have a degree of confidence there because they have done it before. The model that we're going with too is that we are engaging them on an ongoing basis for the support of those integrations, because really it is that ongoing care and feeding of integrations that is so important. You can't build them and leave them. So we've taken into account that risk and how we're planning to move forward.
Okay. So what great sort of segue into my next question. How do you ensure sort of an ever fresh of this program, software packages and software management ever evolving? Is that part of the project going forward of a staged upgrading? Is that part of the plan? How does this play out?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So there's the really keeping it ever fresh is there's two components of that. One is the software itself, and our platform is going to be software as a service. So it is going to be hosted by the top proponent in their cloud environment, their secure cloud environment, I might add. And so that definitely takes a degree of the load of ensuring that we're working with the most updated software. It does become a bit of a much more complex when you're doing that on premise. The second part of it is the use of the software. And I think that is where we are looking at a governance structure within the organization that ensures that we have individuals that are always looking to how the software can be used more efficiently. Based on the experience I've had in other municipalities, those individuals are always not only using the latest capabilities within the software, but through their own experience and creativity are finding more effective ways to use it. So that is a continuous evolution, and it's really a case of managing the application as opposed to just supporting the application. So we have worked that out in terms of our governance going forward.
All right. Thank you so much for that. In your sort of the concluding comments, Mrs. George, you talked about real-time maintenance management. Explain perhaps what you meant by that. Like, do we have sensors on our assets that gives us real-time asset sort of condition management, or what are you talking about when you talk real-time maintenance?
Certainly, thanks for the question. We do have a component in the software that has the maintenance management, the CMMS portion of it. So what it does is every time a crew goes out and touch an asset, the data prior to that asset is all available to them on their platform. And also the moment they update the asset for whatever the reason is, change valve, for example, they'll be in real time updated on the system. So if another person is looking at the asset from across the organization, will know, oh, such and such a crew is working on it because it's, shut down period for that asset. And then after a few hours or a day, perhaps the data update comes across as the data asset has been updated and it's renewed. So it helps in the operational level. It helps in the planning level when we plan for a scope of the project. For example, if that particular asset comes across 2 years down the road in that planning realm, they say, hey, wait a minute, we don't need to change that valve. It's already been updated as part of the repair that was done 2 years ago. So all the data is visible to anyone who accesses the platform from anywhere across the organization. So that's what we mean by real-time data. And Joanne, do you want to?
Sure, I'll just add to that. So this platform has very robust mobile capabilities so that crews in the field, whether they're using a phone or probably more likely a tablet device, are able to both update conditions of the asset in real time if they're doing, say, as an inspection, or as they complete a work order for maintenance. That information, as long as they have a connection, will be real time. If they don't have a cellular connection at that point in time, as soon as they are back, say back at Jack Craft, they will connect and that information will be updated. And as Donnie had mentioned, it's automatically updated within the central asset register available for anyone else referencing those assets.
Reminds me of all the smart city stuff we did about 10 years ago, but yeah, it's cool.
Just sort of my last question, and it kind of follows on. So we've got $1.4 billion worth of assets, and they're all different conditions, different ages, all of those sorts of things. And I suspect this this software package and it takes all of that in consideration and gives you some sort of a report on where your critical failure opportunities may exist. Does that predict that? And then if it does, or if it doesn't, how do you manage a catastrophic failure in the midst of all of this?
Thank you for that question. So we do have condition assessment that happens in every asset level throughout the city. So that data is constantly being fed into currently in an Excel spreadsheet that doesn't talk to each other. So with the platform, obviously, we think that that can go into the centralized platform. Then we can look at all assets, all critical in a different scale, let's say 0 to 10 level criteria that appears on a database set. That's what the analytics do in terms of the software that we are expecting to happen. So with that critical failure analysis, we will be able to target those first and prioritize those first before the money gets spent elsewhere. Right now, we don't have that visibility across the asset. We do take care of such things right now, basically within each asset category. So that's the benefit of having the software across the board. So do you want to add anything, Lorraine?
I would like to add something. I think that this program is, you can almost make it to what you want it to do. And there are like diagrams such as a reliability centered maintenance diagram where it will go through all these different steps. And you'll go through this little chart and it'll say, this is what you need to do. And I think it's really powerful because right now we're not doing that, but you can put all kinds of background information to help you come to those conclusions too. So it's just not, you know, it's something that we can customize for ourselves. And they do have the ability to put these sorts of these charts in that are well used across asset management.
But it does, please correct me if I'm wrong, right? I mean, this manages the life cycle of an asset, right? And so, you know, we know based on current status, best practice, it'll help prioritize effort. I would submit that, and you use the word, I think, well, you know, it sort of enables our resilience holistically because we know what we've got, where it sits, what state it's in. As we look at our business continuity efforts, right? We've done a very good job, I think, of setting ourselves up from, I guess, an element of infrastructure component, but really the governance piece as a city. I think this is also enabling that next step of knowing what we've got and, you know, what we can draw upon in case of particular issues. So I think it's pretty holistic, Councillor. That was maybe a useful or useless, addendum to what everybody else said, but it goes beyond, you know, I think a lot of folks tend to think of this from an RMR and a recapitalization perspective. I think it's much deeper than that as we look at our overall resilience and business continuity efforts as well for the board decision.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I recognize it's a bit of a big pill, but on the other hand, it's one of those bills that if you want to mature as an organization, as a city, you have to face and yeah. So good job. Thank you.
Mike,
Hi, hey.
I don't know who was first between you two.
Ken was,
Okay.
I'll let the younger gentleman go.
Yeah, he's not being a gentleman to you like Wes was to Shelley. Go ahead, Ken.
I was just thinking, hopefully that pill we can swallow. It doesn't go another way. I guess building on some of the great questions that we've had so far, and they really, a lot of them were mine. So not because they were good questions, but they covered topics that I thought were really important. But I broadly speaking, so we don't have to go into camera, because I mean, I heard some of the things in particular to this vendor. Well, I mean, if we do have to go in camera, like we can be more specific. But is this an off the shelf kind of a platform, or is this something that's more specific to our community?
The approach that the vendor takes, and I might add that they have implemented in at least 60 municipalities across Canada and at least 12 municipalities within Alberta. They combine together their collective knowledge from all those implementations and from how all municipalities use it to continuously develop templated workflows and templated screens for entering the information, and based on best practices. And our intent is to use as much of those templated processes and screens, et cetera, as possible to help us standardize what we do within the city. And also from the perspective of this is the collective experience of, coming now close to 100 municipalities. So we have the ability to configure it. It's highly configurable, but we can also use it very much out of the box. And so our intent is to use as much out of the box as we can and then configure what we need to. Configuration is really important. It's not customization, which means it's much easier to upgrade because it's configuration, to Councillor Broadhead's question about keeping it fresh.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what generated, I mean, you and I both worked in an organization previously that bought an off-the-shelf records management system, and then we ended up spending millions of extra dollars trying to kind of pull what we needed out of it. So, I mean, that hence my question, hence my fear whenever we do that. So, and related to that is then you talk about being able to enter data on the fields, but then that opens up potential data error, and most of our data errors are at entry. So how are we going to control the data input? So is that going to be just an ongoing training in-house, or is that going to be the contractor responsible for that? Or how do we do that without getting into the weeds? I don't want to get into the weeds.
That is a very detailed question. So generally speaking, whenever you've got a device in the field, you're going to want to do as much with drop-down lists so that you get that standardization. And you will have what we call edit checking, which makes sure that you are not putting in a value that can be completely wrong. So if you're putting in the number of hours that you've worked on something, and within a day, 100 hours isn't reasonable. So you have that kind of edit checking. So that's just your very typical type of data quality control that you do as information goes in.
Good. Yeah. I mean, that's where it can all fall apart if you don't have the right data going in. Doesn't matter what, it'll start to throw out information that's wrong. I guess the last question is related to one that Councilor Bermansky asked in relation to staging. And then when we're doing a contractor, and if you're staging it over 5 years, I mean, how firm is our ability? Because we've already seen like a 300% increase in the cost from our original. So how do we maintain costs so that all of a sudden come stage 2 where we're actually committed, that we're not coming back here again asking for a big bundle?
So one of the ways that we have done that is that the RFP went out. We asked for costs for maintaining the software over a 7-year period. So we have committed costs for 7 years for the software. In terms of the professional services, that is very much within our control. We make some of the decisions if we want to go beyond what we have already set. One of the reasons why we were so long in demonstration and so long in negotiation was to work out as much as possible. And I tell you, there will be absolutely no surprises. No, that is the nature of the beast. But we have everything that we could possibly foresee at this point in time. We have, and we work collaboratively with them for it. But the software fees have been locked in for 7 years.
Okay, and the licensing fees, so that's those fees.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because that would have been an operation.
One of the risks that we identified as part of the negotiation was the internal capacity of our resources to be ready in parallel to work with the consultant as they're implementing. Because we have our day jobs, this is going to be on top of it. So how do we manage that is the biggest question. And we have resource loaded map that we got and how many hours of commitment that we need. So that's the greatest that we identified. And then that's why we had to stretch it in the way that we have the day job still continuing to do, stop the city. So that's one of the major risks that we identified, and it's already accounted for in the costing and the professional services across the different states.
And just to add that, to be completely transparent, there were about 3 areas where we knew we didn't have all the information that we need right now. What we have chosen to do is put workshops at the very beginning of the project to delve into the detail in those areas, to see if there's anything there that is not expected. We've also built in 200 hours, additional hours, to take care of some of those aspects. So we've done, like, I can assure you that we have done as much as we can to know as much as we can this far ahead.
So you don't require additional staffing in your area?
So
Is that built into the?
yeah, so to get into that, as Donnie was saying, for the project itself, built into these costs are backfills for critical positions, because some of the critical positions are going to be needed at 75% capacity, because we have a complete project plan at this point in time. That basically is 100%. As you may recall, for in our budget deliberations for 2025, you approved the conversion of a term to perm application analyst within my area. So we do have that individual. The project is going to be staffed very much from backfills for permanent staff or term staff. We will know once we get to the completion of stage 1 or stage 2, what we're going to need in addition to any of that ongoing. Because at this point in time, it is a question mark. I know I need the one application analyst. We'll be able to see going forward what we need as we finish that implementation.
Okay, so downstream somewhere, you may have identified you need, okay, fair enough, thank you. Now, Mike, you're older.
Do you want to speak to the asset? Okay.
I'll just turn it over to my older colleague then.
Thank you. To administration, a great presentation, but a couple of questions. So, and you've answered a lot of them, but one of the questions I had was around overall payback. So we're going to invest, $6 million, but we're also going to be turning down a bunch of old systems, software costs, and was a traditional payback kind of looked at for this investment? Is that something that we could do even to?
So in the sense of a traditional ROI type calculation, we did not do that. But to your earlier comment about retiring the systems, when we are complete at the end of stage 4, the net impact on our like the software budget, the operating software budget per year, based on our calculations right now, is $70,000. So although we didn't do that calculation in terms of, what's the payback for that 70,000 incremental, I can say that given the capabilities that we're going to be getting, the cost benefit of that $70,000 is definitely a positive.
Okay. Thank you. When you went out and looked at this particular vendor, really pleased to hear that, there's 12 similar systems in Alberta. Have you actually talked to either one or two of those cities or municipalities where it's operating and kind of heard firsthand how it's working for them?
Yes, we did that as part of the evaluation. I know I've actually worked in a municipality that has used it as well. I don't have the specifics of those reference checks, but we did do the reference checks as part of the demonstration process.
Yeah. Okay. You've seen it in operation somewhere else.
Very early on, we did visit a municipality that's relatively close, and we did take a look at the capability and also created contacts that are so willing to help. So that's also a big plus.
Thanks. The idea of, on this particular slide, of starting with one of our biggest areas in stage one versus kind of starting with a smaller area and learning from and showing success. I heard that two things. One is that Public Works is the most ready to move and has some of the oldest software. So was that the trade-off of why we want to go with that, big complex area first versus a smaller, simpler and get it?
So I'll start to answer that question. Tim Saunders, I know, is on the line, and he may have some additional information to add. So we had a lot of discussion about the staging. And in fact, when we went through the procurement process, we actually had a different staging when we went out to market. And then in the discussions with the vendor and in discussions with the negotiating team, we made some changes. The groups, the way the groups in public operations work together, the teams that do the work on streets and sidewalks, transportation, parking usage areas, and horticulture, all work very closely together. So that, and some teams might even one day have assignments in one of these areas and another day have assignments in another area. So it was very difficult to split them. They are the most ready, both in terms of their data, their systems, and their staff. And so although this is quite a heavy front end load, there was just no way to pull it apart without creating an area that could fail, to be honest. So I don't know, Tim, do you have anything you wanted to add to that? And did I get any of that right?
No, you got all of it right. We looked to minimize the impact to the Public Operations Department. We are in Public Operations, we're stewards of 10 of the 29 asset categories, asset portfolios, and then we're partners in 15 of the remaining 19. So we do have hands across all asset portfolios essentially. So we had to look at the functionality, the groups that were going to be using the software, and looking to see where the synergies were so that we could minimize the inevitable of working in two systems for a period of time. We were not able to eliminate it. So there is risk of asset record management, some manual processes that are going to have to stay on longer, but the phasing and the stages that we've identified will minimize that to the best of our ability right now.
And from what this means to our residents, I believe that what I heard was service request portal is where kind of see click fix would fit in there. So we'll start to see some actual additional benefit to residents at the early phase of implementation. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And that was part of our negotiation as well. We decided that the service request portal you'll see is in stage one, and that's for all asset classes. And that was primarily so that we could push that benefit out to the public for them to be able to report issues. But also so for the efficiencies of the teams in stage one, they will see that that request or that issue come in, and as needed, translate it automatically through the system into a work order to rectify the issue. And for any of the assets that are not on the new system, they will still have access to the portal and will basically be creating work orders in the old system. So we wanted to be able to have that for both the public and for our staff right off the get-go.
And then two final questions. It's a little bit weird one, but what was the thinking behind having this homed in within engineering versus within IT or even finance, asset management side? It just, and no slight to engineering.
He's not busy. It's not busy, that's why.
Reporting it to the next.
It's a funny fit to me personally, but
It could belong to finance, it could belong to corporate. Ideally,
Yeah.
it should be sitting at the corporate level.
yeah,
Because it oversees all the assets across the board and connects with.
Right.
And it's got a very good engineering component built within it too. So the argument could be anywhere. So we decided to host it because the EY report can say engineering consider it as a hub and spoke model now. As the city matures, and they can fly off to a corporate level. at that point, right? So right now, with the size of the structure that we have decided to host it within engineering, and at some point when it gets mature to a certain level, it can definitely migrate to any of those places in the corporate. So as you can see, the stage one transportation, all of the assets that we touched, the condition assessment, the transportation and the utilities are 75% of our asset. So we take care of those through the RMR program, the capital integration, all of that. So it made sense to right now house it within engineering with the potential for it to move anywhere.
And I might want to just add to that too, is that software such as this is organizational in scope. And every one of the departments is going to have a role in it. And in order to manage it going forward, there will be a role for the asset management committee in terms of decision-making, in terms of the direction that we're going to take, what our roadmap is going to be, how we're going to improve over the years. IT is very much a part of that in terms of the technical management of the application, being the custodian of the data, of ensuring that all of that architecture that's below the water that makes everything run is working. So it is very much a partnership, and it's very much a matrix, structure that we're going to be going forward with, so that the appropriate ownership is in the appropriate departments, because there's very much a role within public operations from a usability perspective, from the maintenance part of it. The asset management part of it, very much in engineering. The being custodians of the infrastructure and the technology within IT. So we're going to all be working together in this, but it is primarily a very business-driven project, with IT being there to make sure everything stays together. Is that fair?
Yeah. Then my last question probably is, a lot of these projects that experience die of 1,000 cuts, and small incremental scope creep times 10,000 will kill a project. And so who is, and a vendor will always say yes. Because they're getting paid to say yes. And I want this to be absolutely successful 100%. So who or what is there a committee that is set up that says, yes, it can do it, but that's just not something we're going to do today because it's, how do we stop scope creep and contain escalating budgets and all of those things?
So I'll start that answer, and I think we passed to you, because we talked about quite a bit of project governance.
And program governance.
Yeah. So we're taking an approach of having what we call a project board. And that has the directors of all the departments that are the largest stakeholders. And that project board will be making consensus-driven decisions. Ultimately, Alex is the executive sponsor. So if those decisions can't be made, there's always that escalation. But we've had quite a lot of discussion about the appropriate project governance to ensure that we don't fall down that trap, as well as the ongoing operational governance. So if you have anything you want to add to that, Donnie or Jordan?
You covered the project governance, but like any project that we manage, we do have the project governance who goes through different levels of approval before the change order can be approved, for example, right, in a project level. And this particular one, we call it program because it's multiple projects that we are managing with this umbrella. So there's project board that Joanne mentioned. At the program level, we have the AM committee that looks after this. So there's a subcomponent that feeds into that level. And on top of it comes the EO for final approval. So there's a checks and balance in place, is what I'm trying to say, to not allow scope creep and additional budget requirements.
Yeah. And I think what I might add to that, is it's very much to our will to ensure that we standardize. And that was a theme that was discussed right from the start of seeing those demonstrations. It was one of the reasons we had 40 some odd staff in the demonstrations. It's been part of the discussions of the negotiation committee to say, if this is going to work, we kind of have to stick to our guns. If we want to standardize, we need to ensure that we don't have it death by 1,000 cuts or 1,000 customizations. So it's really that organizational will, it needs to be very strong, and it certainly is amongst all the directors and the departments that have been on this project.
Great, thank you very much, yeah. Good project, scary, but good.
Okay, go ahead, Shannon.
Okay, so we asked a lot of questions already, but I almost, this is a bit of like a riskier thing than we're looking at, because we're putting all of our eggs into this software basket. So if it goes sideways, or there's a breach, or they can't update it, we lose everything. Like that's, so the other thing I'm thinking about is like, it's taking us 5 years to amalgamate this. So let's say like the speed that software becomes outdated, and then we say, okay, we need to change the software to a different program, let's say in 5 to 7 years. We're also saying it's going to take 5 years to get out of this program, get into a new program, to be able to incorporate that. So we're basically not committing to 5 years. We're committing to a 10 to 15 year on one piece of software. And I'm trying to think of any piece of software in the history of man that we were still using 15 years later, even other than, let's say, Windows, but that, I mean, like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, are we that confident that we're actually going to have, not just have the next 5 years, but the next decade plus still be able to use this software?
So none of us have a crystal ball.
Right.
But what I can say is that looking at the track record of the vendor and the implementations that they have put in and the longevity of those implementations gives us the confidence to say, and what I can say very confidently, that of the entire industry that we have seen, I have the greatest confidence in this vendor in terms of being able to be there in that 10 to 15 year timeframe, because they've been there the 10 to 15 timeframe. We live in times of great uncertainty. So you can never, never say no. But from everything that we could do, we could rely on, we have that has given us that degree of confidence, knowing that the world is a topsy-turvy place right now.
And I'm assuming that everything we're having here, this database of information, we could download it if we needed to transfer it over.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and I'm assuming they're also doing systemic backups.
Yes.
Okay. I know it's obvious, but I just, we're putting $1 million.
The data still belongs to us, right? I mean, to your point.
So, okay, the other thing, let me just see here, because I don't want to repeat questions that have been asked. So the 6 million is just the software, but we also have what I'd call assets that still haven't been evaluated in our system, like some kind of pipes or something haven't been looked at. So are we going to be seeing additional requests to be able to go through that, or to have, because we only have the information we have, so we can compile all the information we have, but then we also don't know what we don't know.
There's an ongoing process of updating the data that we don't have, the as-built information, or the example that you said is pipe information, which is why we have put utilities on stage 3, because they're still compiling that information. We hope to get that to a somewhat 100% level before they get married to this platform at stage 3. So am I missing here?
So the other thing I had was the audit committee, when we were discussing like our plans, one of them was asset evaluation planning, right? And then that got pushed back. So how does this tie in with the potential audit in a couple of years of that? Because it just, how do they work together?
I think this would probably supersede that.
Right.
Right, and that's why it was pushed back. I think it's because we wanted to come to grips with this.
Was that why
that was the main reason why we asked to kind of have it pushed back, because the intent of that one was to sort of assess our asset management things. And we didn't have any, but we're going to. So like, we want to have the chance to be able to implement it and then potentially have someone come in and look at it to say, are we on the right track? We go, yeah.
So I didn't quite answer your previous question. The 6.5 million, that's just the software, it's software resourcing that we need to backfill. There's other components in there too, maybe to help with that.
Yeah, so it is over the course of the 6 years, it is the software fees, the software as a service fees, It is professional services from the vendor. It is the backfill of our resources. And then it was for, as we move operational over the 1 to 6 years, it is the operational costs for the stages that have now gone live. And so at the end of 6 years, everything is live, and now we cut over to operations.
So that's my last question, which was, how long will it be before we actually start using it in a live fashion? Because you have to input it, but then you had said some guys are in the field and some guys are here, and we can't use it at the same time. When do you actually plan to start using it?
So I misspoke when I said it was operational from a budgeting perspective. We are now just paying for it only out of our base operations. Each stage will go live. It's roughly about a year per stage. The first stage is longer, so we are looking at that going live. I think it's second quarter 2027. I think I have to double check that.
Okay.
But each one will be live as it is completed.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Councillor Jolly.
Yeah, thank you. My only question is about whether changing service levels or like kind of risk tolerance would impact this project. Like I'm thinking if, we get to stage 3 and then we're changing service levels for some of the assets in stage 1, if that has an impact at all on the project or timing.
Continuing question. So once the stage 1 goes live, any service level adjustment will be part of the operational component that we can, change as we go. So I think the asset owners will be adept at that point in stage 3 with the stage 1 components so that they can seamlessly integrate the service level component into their asset management program.
So there's no kind of big impact if we change service levels, like it doesn't cause a lot of work to kind of go backwards and reduce service levels?
No, the system will be in place to mitigate any of those add-ons that may come in the future. And I would expect to see with the training that we have planned as part of the program, the workshops that we have planned, our internal staff will be ready to take on that additional task and implement the change.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my only other question would be whether kind of about the public facing information, if there is any opportunity to integrate kind of the data within this system to answer resident questions. I'm thinking we get, we might get a question about, oh, there's terrible potholes on this road, and the response is, a canned response about service levels and kind of where it is in terms of priorities. Is that something that can be integrated to kind of reduce that back and forth, or just increase the speed at which residents get answers to those questions?
Yeah, I can ask Tim to answer that question from a maintenance side.
Yeah, thank you for the question. This will definitely bring another layer of transparency and visibility to the teams as to where residents are inquiring on our assets. So it will definitely speed up the communication with residents.
But it's not a customer relations enterprise system, right? Like it's not that, just to be clear.
No, it's not a customer relationship management system. It will be an issue management system though. So we do foresee it being used, for instance, by the construction help desk. So for managing issues.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have right now.
And if I might, Councillor Hughes, I misspoke. The stage 1, we are currently, based on the current plan, we are looking at completion in Q4 2027 because of the size of that one. But the subsequent stages are shorter in duration.
Lorraine had something to add to Councillor Jolly's questions.
I do have something to add with regards to your service level question. I think the software is really powerful in that it will have the ability to do scenario testing. So if we do change the service level, whether it be higher or lower, we can see ultimately at some, like how much it will cost and what will it mean. So I think it's going to be a really powerful tool.
So I guess on that note, can we, like, this is several years out, but is there an opportunity to kind of put a project on council to leverage that tool to try to make decisions about service levels? I know we've talked a lot about, the sustainability of our program and kind of the need to make changes probably in the future. So is that something that would be considered kind of at the tail end of the project so council can make those decisions?
So maybe I can jump in on that. I mean, that's council. So, certainly we'll maintain sort of our service level overview, right? I think we're probably primed for a more holistic look at it in the next couple of years. Those will be done with the traditional system. Once we have the data, right? And I think the understanding that enables, Councillor, your point's a really good one. So sometime in the next 5 to 7 years, probably when we reach that level of maturity to inform that would, I think, be a very useful endeavor.
Just add, we can run what if scenarios. For example, if the council wants to add, I want to add this particular service level to all our assets. We can do a what if scenario and project the cost that we might foresee for the next 50 years, operations, capital, whatever, right? So that's a possible possibility with the software.
That'll be really helpful. Awesome. Thanks.
But if I might just add to that too, just as a reality check, it is important, as Mr. Fletcher said, that we'll need to build up the information from our operations part of the cycle into the asset management part. And that accumulates year over year. So it will take a number of years to get all of the data so that we can do appropriate scenario building. So you can't get it overnight because the data isn't there. You need the data here. And so that will take years as we use the system.
If I can just jump in, going back on the financial sustainability side of this discussion. So obviously, council is well aware in our budget guiding principles. We've kind of had the forethought to add in that 1.5% RMR, knowing that the analytics that we were able to do at that time was based purely on our accounting data of our assets. Because that was really what we had, because all of this other asset information that we have is kind of scattered all over the organization and no way to kind of pull that together. So we utilize the accounting data to help formulate that recommendation. And the intent at that time that we had a lot of discussion about was, this is what was needed, was the asset management where we had true actual data on our actual assets with their conditions to help evolve that conversation. So hopefully once we have all this information, we'll be able to have a really good discussion on financial sustainability. What do we need to do from an investment perspective? To also level out those ebbs and flows. Because again, as you talk, when you have a lot of assets, things, some years you have high costs and other years low costs, and how do you stabilize that out for the taxpayer? So it would allow that, if we could have to continue with an RMR surcharge, it will be very, very data based. It will be able to come out and to Councillor Jolly's point about scenarios and service levels and that kind of stuff, that'll allow us, if the data is telling us based on our current service levels, we have to put X amount per year into reserve. If we feel that's too high, we can start playing around with potentially the service levels to say, what would that impact be on those? So it'll be incredible data that we'll be able to have to support our decision making.
Thank you. It sounds like a good discussion in about 2 terms.
Exactly. All right.
So
Another question?
yeah. Data conversion is going to be super, super important, and kind of data scrubbing to make sure you're not putting garbage, solid waste, I should say, into a good new system. So there may be data that we don't even need anymore. So why add it to the system? Is that at the program management review level, or where would that happen?
So I'll start to answer that, and I don't know then you might have some others. So from the project perspective, in terms of, and that's this light green line here, the spatial asset condition, data assessment, collection, consolidation, and migration.
Yeah.
So we have put workshops at the very beginning of the project to look at our data readiness for every asset class all the way down, because we know that some data is better than others. And if we're going to see that we've got a lot of work to do, we want to know that as far as possible, because that type of work needs to be done by our staff. Do we need to collect more data? Do we need to scrub the data? So for instance, if there's something in stage 4 that we need to do a lot of work on, we can start it while we're working on stage 1. So we'll know more once we go through those workshops. And I think I'll stop there and then maybe turn over to Donnie to see if you have anything you want to add to that.
Definitely garbage in and garbage out. We don't
Yeah.
want to. So screening of the data is so key in the first stage, stage one for each of those asset class is so key to get our result down the road, right? So that is built into the project timing. And also we identified the right subject matter experts to match with the consultant to sit down and figure this out. So Joanne already talked about standard templates that they have developed in the previous implementation process, which is what we're going to look at first. Is this cool enough for us, or are there other data fields that are missing that is so important for us to migrate? So there's a little bit of customization that needs to happen in that first stage. And Joanne can explain this better. There's a mass data migration that we're planning to implement. Once that's all figured out, it's not like one data at a time. It's a mass data migration that we're going to collect and transform this.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I see no more questions, so I'm gonna just say you guys asked a lot of really good questions. All of you took some of mine and came up with some other ones, so that's great. I need somebody to
I'd be pleased.
make a motion. Go ahead, Mike, yeah.
Madam Mayor. That the Standing Committee of the Whole recommend to council that the revised capital charter, enterprise maintenance management and asset management EMAM ITSV -014 as attached to the agenda report entitled Enterprise Enterprise Maintenance Management Asset Management Update and Budget Request dated May 13th, 2025, be approved with an increase in budget from 1.4 million to 6.508400, and the increase of 5,108,400 be funded from the capital reserve.
All right, I'll accept that. Go ahead. Anything?
This is a major transformational project, as we've stated. I'm very pleased to hear that it's been reviewed with and implemented in 60 other locations across Canada and 12 other municipalities in Alberta. It's certainly a risky project, but by the sounds of it, this vendor that we've been working through the IPD project or process has got a good track record with other municipalities. So we have a high level of confidence by the sounds of it that this will be successful over the long term. And again, when we say that we've got $1.4 billion worth of assets, this kind of investment.
I gotcha.
Of 0.5% to implement a project that brings all that together and manages it, not only manages the maintenance, but manages the risk of the lack of maintenance, is super critical to the city long-term as we go forward. So this significant investment, but a massive return on that investment. So it's a project I think we will serve the city well.
Councilor McKay.
Yeah, thanks. And this goes back to 2017 when I first got on council, and I looked at what we had from an enterprise risk management platform, plus also including the whole enterprise maintenance management, asset management. And it goes back, again, I referred to it in my question, to a previous organization that I was involved with, and saw the criticality of it. Is that a word? Criticality? And so, I mean, not only for the kind of the opening comments that Councillor Killick identified, but I mean, the term transformational, it's used in the background, or it was certainly used in opening comments. It's also really important in addition to any of the operational efficiencies that an enterprise maintenance management and asset management platform will provide us. It supports data-driven decision-making, and evidence-based decision-making is so vital in this time. And it also supplements our strategic planning and our long-term planning for the city, as we've identified. So it provides not only city administration, senior administration, but it provides our council, future councils, by the sounds of it, with real-time visibility into our current asset conditions, all of the maintenance histories and capital requirements, which will be crucial for prioritizing our future investments. And not only that, and something that is I don't think we really touched on, but the importance of complying with statutory and regulatory standards. And so the platform also improves accountability. I think that's vital in this day and age, and it also touches on transparency, a big piece on transparency. And we've talked a little bit about what the platform could do in the future around maybe creating that dashboard that will allow residents to kind of look into what some of the important issues are and how we're dealing with. So that's the clear documentation and performance metrics that we can also share with our stakeholders, and which is very, like, it could be anything from developers to anybody that are coming in relation to it. So as we're facing increasing demands with our limited budgets, implementing such a system helps ensure that our infrastructure is managed strategically, equitably, and it is long-term sustainability. So I support it. I know it's a big budget increase, but if you look at it in the totality, 1.4 billion, and I think, Jeffrey, you identified it's like not even 0.5% of that. So I support it.
Awesome. Councilor Bermansky.
Thank you. And for the rest of council, I do have some concern with this project. I realize the intent, we do have to manage assets and such, but the rollout time of 6 years and completion in 7 is just so long that I feel like much of the data will be outdated by that time. And then the management of training staff to input the correct data can be a great variable with its continuous evolution as well. And we're talking about real-time visibility. Well, real-time visibility doesn't traditionally take 7 years. So it's just that commitment of $6.5 million to a vendor, and that long-term commitment without a guaranteed return on investment that's not, completely visible. So there's I understand the intent, but it's just very difficult. It's a lot of speculation in this factor, and of the other municipalities that have the program already. We don't know what stage they're at, if they've just implemented it. So we don't have any data on that as well. So I would have liked more guarantee, more data, and smoother, shorter term implementation, or greater possibilities before it's outdated. So I'm really torn on this one. Anyhow, thanks.
Great. Anything to close, Councilor Cook? Wes has his hands up. Oh, sorry, it's so late on the screen. Go ahead, Wes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll certainly make my my major debate when it comes before council. But to me, this is the city of St. Albert maturing as an organization and starting to enter into some of the business practices that larger municipalities have had to embrace years ago. So to my point, and certainly to the Councilor Bermansky's point, perhaps a brief in-camera session might be appropriate, so that the questions around successful integration of such a program in other municipalities might be able to be discussed in detail, where commentary is protected. So just a thought. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Killick?
Yeah, just to briefly close, this is clearly an investment in our future. Our assets, as they continue to age and mature, become more at risk. And implementation of this kind of system can address that risk. It's not just about information going into the system. It's about having use of that information to maintain those assets. And if we look at our later today on our agenda, when we talk about RMR, it's a 10-year rolling plan. of everything from sidewalks to sewers. This system will help address that with real data. It'll give our staff the tools that they need to manage it going forward. And I think it will be a good return on investment for residents as we go forward long term.
Do you want to add anything else?
I just wanted to add something, if that's okay. I know you just heard, but we're relying heavily on the evaluation of staff on this program about just not only the stability, but also just the longevity of this. And I feel like the level of scrutiny has been much higher than anything we've seen in the past. So just the risk that's involved in this and trying to mitigate that, staff have been very conscious of trying to make sure that this decision is the right one moving forward. And that we won't regret it going forward, and that it will have longevity, and the fact that it has already been implemented in multiple cities and that it has a longevity so that it's not crashing and it's actually able to be usable, allows me to feel more comfortable moving forward on this, because this has been not lightly evaluated before it came to council. And that's a key element about our risk. So thank you.
All right, call for the vote. And that one passes by majority with Councilor Metsky opposed. Okay.
Yeah.
She's not on the screen. Natalie, are you here?
Yep,
Why can't I see you? Hold on.
my camera's turned off.
She in favor of that?
I didn't even, but even when your camera's like, can you turn on so we can see you and we can see your check mark?
I voted yes.
Okay, when we get back, can you put your camera on so we can see you and I can see if you have questions, et cetera, because it doesn't show up if your camera's not on. I see Trevor and Monty showed up just in time for lunch. Okay, so it is 11:40. We'll reconvene shortly after 12, maybe 10 after 12. Sound good?
Yeah. Go. Hurry before that, everybody else gets in there. Hurry before everybody else.
That's probably short.
So 12:10, Madam Mayor?
You did? Not much, not hard.
Madam Mayor, did you say 12:10?
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm here. Just issues with my camera.
And Shelley's there, and Wes, are you back with us? Okay, perfect. Okay, we are back and we are going to talk about the 2025 FCM convention conference, whatever you call it. Who's, why don't you go ahead first? Okay.
Sure.
Are
Good.
you coming to Ottawa?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. I'm Monty Killow, Government Relations Advisor, and I'm here to provide an overview of the upcoming Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference that's taking place in Ottawa from May 29th to June 1st within the context of a new parliament. So as council is aware, FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, is a nationally focused municipal association with over 2,100 member municipalities from across the country, representing 92% of all Canadians. It's a key advocacy partner for federal municipal issues. So this year's FCM conference will include study tours of the City of Ottawa, potential speeches from federal political leaders, and workshops on topics such as leveraging partnerships and increasing municipal housing supply. The conference will also include a resolutions plenary session where resolutions on municipal issues of federal significance will be voted on by attendees to become part of FCM's overall advocacy strategy with the federal government. A briefing note on these resolutions will be provided to council once FCM publishes the resolutions package later this month. This year's conference is unique in that it will take place in Ottawa within a month of the federal election, shortly after a new cabinet is named, which just happened this morning, and within 2 days of His Royal Majesty King Charles III delivering Canada's speech from the throne in person, which is the first time Canada's monarch will personally deliver the speech in over 50 years. This speech will provide an outline for the recently elected government's priorities, as well as plans to action these priorities. The Liberal Party's campaign platform provides insight regarding what some of these priorities might be. Some of these commitments from the campaign platform have alignment to council's advocacy priorities, including build community infrastructure through engaging with municipalities that make progress on housing first, cut municipal development charges in half for multi-unit residential housing for 5 years by working with provinces and territories to keep municipalities whole. And these revenues will be offset by federal investment in housing infrastructure like water, power lines, and wastewater systems. Build on the success of the Housing Accelerator Fund and building Canada's economy, economic growth, and building new markets for Canadian goods. So regarding the federal election, as council is aware, on April 28th, the Liberal Party of Canada won a minority government. They are still performing some judicial recounts in some ridings, so the final count won't be confirmed. There is a small chance it could become a majority government, very unlikely. However, political maneuvering in the next month could change the situation. In St. Albert's new St. Albert Sturgeon River electoral district, incumbent Michael Cooper of the Conservative Party of Canada won his 4th straight victory. And in the Edmonton region, a single Liberal MP was elected in the Edmonton Centre District, Eleanor Olszewski, who just this morning was named as Federal Minister of Emergency Management and Community Resilience, as well as Minister responsible for Prairie's Economic Development Canada in the new federal cabinet. So with all this said, given the location and timing of the FCM conference, elected municipal officials will have the opportunity to react to the government's throne speech in proximity to the federal government itself. And this may also allow for meetings to discuss topics of municipal importance with federal government officials. It's within this context that council may have opportunities to interact with federal officials regarding council's 2 top priorities, Lakeview Business District servicing and advance mixed market housing development. And this can be done through highlighting alignment with the federal government's priorities and action plans. So if these discussions happen, they could emphasize Lakeview Business District's alignment with the government's goal of building Canada's economy and expanding interprovincial trade markets for Canadian businesses. How St. Albert has reduced red tape and policy barriers to enable more housing, such as recent land use bylaw amendments, as well as competitive permitting times. Definitely appreciation for receipt of the Housing Accelerator Fund, which will further build upon existing efforts to increase and diversify our housing supply, as well as the city's focus on increasing the non-market housing supply specifically, and how increased federal support for affordable housing initiatives and policies can enable this. So at this point, Madam Mayor, I'd be happy to entertain any questions from council members. There may be some questions, if related to intergovernmental strategy, that committee should consider moving in camera pursuant to sections 21 and 24 1A of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Thank you. That concludes my oral presentation.
Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's going to be a uniquely interesting FCM this year, given just the timing of the new government. So my question to you, Mr. Kilo, is we've always heard the Prime Minister speak directly to the Assembly in previous FCMs. Is Prime Minister Carney expected to be there?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Broadhead. It has not been confirmed if he will be there. However, at his published schedule to date does note, I believe on the Tuesday, he's scheduled to have an in-person meeting with all of the premiers, which means that prior to that meeting happen, he might be available. FCM, the conference is from, I believe, Thursday through to Sunday. So I believe it's an appropriate time span that if he needed to have some kind of sessions scheduled differently, FCM would more than likely be wanting to make that work out.
I appreciate that. I'd like to ask him a question. So anyway, hope he's there.
What's your question?
Well, just around his commitment to the housing file.
Not transit?
Well, I'd love to talk about transit as well, for sure. But if I had a priority question, it'd be around the housing.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And Sean Fraser is housing, right?
No.
Oh, no, it was
Gregor Robertson.
Gregor Robertson, right, okay.
Former mayor of Vancouver.
He's justice, okay, cool. Any other questions, Mike?
Yeah. Do we have any better understanding? There's a lot of talk during the campaign around modular housing as being the way to go. Do we have any better understanding of what that actually looks like, and could it potentially affect St. Albert, either from delivery of housing or as a potential industry for us?
Thanks for the question. I believe it was last fall, the federal government published their national housing catalog of prefabricated design templates for housing. To my knowledge, it's not clear if that is what the government has intended to kind of be the actionable part of modular housing, or if this would be a revision of that design catalog, or if it would be something new entirely. We expect a clarity on this, both either through the speech to the throne or through the mandate letter that will be given to the housing or the minister who's in charge of housing.
So similar question then on, again, talk of during the campaign around freeing up federal land for housing. Do we have any federal land that around us or in our region that would potentially apply to?
I believe regionally there's ongoing development at the old Griesbach military barracks that is federal land.
Yeah.
In St. Albert, I believe it's the Canada Post sites might be the only federal land we have. But I would defer that question maybe to our assessment team if they might have a better idea if there's any other federally owned properties in the city.
Yeah, probably not. That's
No, I can do. Isn't that where Christian Benson's working?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Lands Company.
Question though? No.
Yeah.
All right, and you're going to CAMA ahead of it and then meeting us Us, yeah. Okay, cool. You're not going, Trevor? All right, I think that's it. There's no motion on this. And so you'll give us a briefing when the resolution package comes out.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and based on whatever might happen within the federal government between now and then, we'll also be sure to update council should anything happen at that time.
I know because I said on the election readiness committee that invitations went out to all the leaders before the election, just so they could put the conference in their calendars to hopefully. I have high confidence they'll be there. I think it's in Ottawa. It makes it easy for them, so.
Yeah, I did have.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Again, related to housing, it was, again, discussion on the campaign trail around reducing term was used taxes that are municipalities pay or charge, which increases the cost of housing. And there were comments of, those should be reduced. Do we have any sense of what that actually meant when they were saying, using those terms and how they would offset those costs to municipalities?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It hasn't been specifically clarified. Just within the Liberal campaign platform, it mentions that it would be offset by investments into infrastructure servicing. And they used wastewater, power, and water as examples. So potentially that could mean if the city cuts development fees and charges, potentially we could do some math as to how much money that would cost us, and we'd get a co-equal investment from the federal government to cover that loss. But again, details hopefully will be confirmed in the mandate letters and potentially the speech from the throne.
Okay. All potentially interesting to help us in our housing
Did I
situation.
hear that King Charles is coming to Canada to deliver the speech?
Yes.
That's what I heard. That's cool. Okay, good. Thanks, guys. We're back to request for decisions, which is 6.2. Multi-sport games alternatives. Very excited about this.
We are. Good morning, or I guess it's afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am here today with colleagues. So Anna Royer, our Manager of Funding and Special Events, and Mo Giordano, who's our Supervisor of Special Events for the Recreation and Parks Department. We're here as a follow-up to a meeting where we came and presented in December about the 55+ games and suggested that maybe we hold on that one and look for an alternate multi-sport games to bring back to council for consideration. And we're just here to provide you an update on that. We have a quick presentation if you want us to walk through that. Then I will pull it up on my screen and I will turn it over to you to see if I can do this. There we go. There we go. Great. Anna, over to you.
Got it? And you just,
It's coming up now.
oh, it's coming.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Herron and members of council. As Danielle mentioned, today we're going to discuss the possibility of St. Albert hosting a multi-sport games. And again, just as the historical little note, to late 2024, we received direction to move away from submitting a bid for the Alberta 55+ games and instead explore some alternate opportunities. Historically, we do have some experience in hosting multi-sport games. There was 4 significant multi-sport games in the past. 1979 was the Alberta Summer Games. 1994 was the Alberta Winter Games. 2011 Alberta 55+ Winter Games, and the 2012 Special Olympics National Games. And just a little note, I was involved with 3 of those games. I tell you which ones, and I won't tell you how, but I was here and involved.
Volunteered when you were 12?
I did, but I liked it, yes. So administration reviewed 2 upcoming opportunities that the city of St. Albert could develop a hosting bid for: the 2028 Alberta Summer Games and the 2029 Special Olympics Alberta Summer Games. Both games provide excellent opportunities and would meet many of the benefits we envision for our community. We will take a closer look into both the benefits and the commitments involved with these 2 games on the next few slides. There are a number of benefits and opportunities experienced from hosting a multi-sport games. Socially, a games provides the opportunity to share the community's culture,
build volunteer capacity, appeal to a number of community interests, celebrate sport and culture through building community connections, and as a community support and nurture an inclusive environment. Economic opportunities are experienced through the attraction of hospitality dollars to the community, the leveraging of corporate support through hosting opportunities, and the development of partnerships with the business community that may expand beyond the length of years. We have had the opportunity to meet with representatives from Special Olympics Alberta, the Provincial Alberta Games governing body, the community currently planning the 2026 Alberta Summer Games, and representatives from our local St. Albert Special Olympics organization. Previous discussions in a survey completed with our local sport partners indicated strong support for hosting the games and their willingness to be involved. Through our conversations and document review, we have developed a high-level inventory and budget for both games to better understand the commitments required. This slide provides a quick glance and comparative for the number of athletes, coaches, officials, and volunteers involved in the games, as well as the number of events involved. And in the agenda package, we also included a listing of those sports that were associated with each of the games. When developing our high-level financial overview, we utilize sample budgets provided by both the provincial agencies as well as recent budgets for similar games, and we have adjusted somewhat for inflation. The main differences shown in the slide for expenses and revenue between the two games are a result of the overall size of the games, the need for regional partners to accommodate all events, and contracted staffing required to plan and manage the games. Therefore, the recommendation in front of the Standing Committee of the Whole is that the Standing Committee of the Whole recommend that Council direct administration to bid for the 2029 Special Olympics Alberta Summer Games and commit $400,000 within the stabilization reserve to be used as funding to plan and implement this event if the bid is successful. While the two multi-sport games are comparable as far as St. Albert facility requirements and event offerings, the scale of the Alberta Summer Games is significantly larger and the financial commitment required by Council greater. There is a high demand for staffing and volunteering resources, and a significant amount of sponsorship dollars would be required from the community if Council chose to direct administration to instead choose the alternate and bid for the 2028 Alberta Summer Games. This recommendation confirms both the direction and a funding source, providing a stronger guarantee within our bid that if chosen, the City of St. Albert is committed to delivering a successful Games. And that I would welcome any questions you may have.
So open it up for questions, guys. Mike.
Thanks, and love the direction this is going. Question is, do they set an exact date that it has to happen? Because we have a lot going on during the summer and trying to fit it into all of our other summer activities. Do we have that window open?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Kelly. We do have a little bit of wiggle room with the date as well, too. I know they have a period of time, and Mo, I know Mo spoke as well with both committees. Did you have anything to add to that?
No, that's exactly correct. There's no exact dates, but there's a set window of kind of historical weeks where these events are supposed to take place.
So we could fit it in with Children's Festival and Rock in August, and
yeah,
that's what I.
Yeah, both days would be looking at the beginning of July or somewhere in there. It's about the time period.
So I guess the overall premise is we'd work with the games, the overall games body to say, okay, when is their window? Then we'd work with our partners. And again, us working ahead so far, we're looking at 2029 for Alberta Special Olympics. It gives us a lot of time to work with our partners. If there's any need to maneuver or change things around, we've got some opportunity to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Councillor Romansky, then Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Just one question. The number of events, can that possibly change by 2029 or will that stay constant?
Go ahead, Mo.
I can answer that. Thank you for your question. So there is a set number of events to host, but that can change depending on the situation. So for example, the number of games that's in your package, that's a set number. So when we, if and when we do potentially bid for these games, we will include which activities or events we're bidding for, but that can change over the course of if we are awarded the bid to actually hosting the games.
So
Okay.
there's some opportunity, but I don't think that the premise would be that they would change the number of games they're expecting. The guide is set by that in the bid. So when we bid on the games we would, or the events we would host in our games.
Okay, I was just curious because we started the pickleball, Special Olympics pickleball and St.
Yeah.
Albans. That would be added to their agenda.
If I could comment on that one, we did pose that question to the provincial Special Olympics organization specifically related to pickleball. And they were quite excited about that. And there is some opportunity to do a more of a demonstration type sport. And they would be very, and we actually discussed that with St. Albert Special Olympics as well. They would be very open to adding a demonstration sport as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Just a quick question about why did we go summer? Like, did we look at winter at all, or do we just like?
Want me to start on that? When we originally had brought forward the idea of a games, winter is a bit more of a challenge just with capacity on space. So we didn't really start with the premise of the outdoor spaces because there's not as many community spaces to lean on as well. So in kind of exploring this the first round, we did look at summer first because there's a lot more partner organizations we could look at exploring those spaces with. So it seemed like a more logical fit with less displacement to some of our existing partners.
Okay, just wondering.
I'm excited. It's awesome. Anyone want to bring forward this motion?
Ken was dying.
Sure, I'll do it. But yeah, I just need, well, I got it here. I can do it. And there you go. The Standing Committee of the Whole recommend that council, direct administration to bid for the 2029 Special Olympics Alberta Summer Games and commit. Is it up to 400,000 or is it commit to? Because it's in the background, it has up to 400,000.
Yes.
Yeah, and commit up to 400,000 within the stabilization reserve to be used as funding to plan and implement this event if the bid is successful, when the bid is successful.
Anything to debate on that one?
No, I'm like you, I'm excited. Hopefully I'm around in 2029.
No guarantees.
Well, if I'm not, you're not.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too.
I love Special Olympics. I loved the winter ones when it was here. It was awesome to watch and they're all fun, but this one has got this just sort of tugs at your heart a bit and it's awesome.
Just want to thank.
I'll have lots of people, that will want to sit on organizing committees and volunteer for that, for sure.
But just want to thank you guys for finding the solution, because I know we sent something out and it could have been a very expensive solution, and we found something that will still work, so we can still host something and we know it can be successful, so.
Okay, anything to close, Ken?
No, nothing.
Oh, for the vote.
In favor.
And that passes unanimously. All right, now we are on to the 10-year municipal RMR plan. Anna and Deborah coming forward.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Kathy. Sorry.
That's okay. It's committee.
Come on.
Hello, ladies.
Sitting in the back there for a while.
This is gonna go super fast.
Oh, heat it up.
Have that tendency sometimes.
Heat it up. And I get it out of
You did. I'm very proud of you.
Good afternoon, Deborah Johnson is here to present our 10-year plan for both municipal and utility, and departments are online to assist with questions. Good afternoon. We're here today to present committee members with the next two agenda items, ARs 25-224 and 225. The 10-year municipal and utility capital repair, maintain and replace, aka RMR plans, for future consideration of approval of the 26 RMR capital projects, which is scheduled for council deliberation on June 3rd. The 10-year RMR plans identify capital projects and budget requirements necessary to maintain the city's existing infrastructure, which is required to maintain current service levels and is managed through life cycle plans previously discussed. For 2026, the municipal RMR budget includes 28 projects equating to 38 million of which 36% represents mobile and other equipment. 33.1% is for roads and other engineered structures, and 27.4% for civic facilities. Included in the 38 million is 9.2 million for transit budget buses, which was previously approved by council. Therefore, while it's part of the 26 budget, it's an approved project. The 26 variance of 5.1 million from last year's 26 plan is primarily due to increase in budget for first, municipal facilities resulting from a life cycle condition assessment, which identified additional refurbishment requirements across the 72 buildings assessed. Focus in the upcoming years will continue to be on Kinex, Liggett Place, and Jack Craft. 2, roadway rehab work after condition assessments identified Hebert Road in need of extensive rehab. And 3, park and outdoor recreation for planning, design, and future construction at Lions Park resulting from Millennium cancellation. And 4, offset by mobile equipment replacement deferrals determined through condition reviews. Now to utility. 26 utility RMR budget includes 11 projects equating to 18.4 million. The 10-year utility capital plan impacts this supplementary capital fee portion of the utility rates. The plan has increased 2.8 million over the 25 through 34 utility plan, which is due to several factors. The budget for the 27 through 34 has increased 4 million over prior years and is due to updated costing and more concise estimates, as well as additional scope work for stormwater management facility and CCTV inspections. This is offset by a reduction of 1.6 million when comparing the 25 budget and the 35 budget due to the significant lift station work that was done in 25 or relating to 25. The 26 variance from last year's 25 plan had an increase of 0.4 million, primarily due to refinement of scope and cost estimates. The 26 budget and RMR plans are being brought forward at this time as the city is committed to funding existing infrastructure prior to consideration of new capital growth. And while approval occurs in June, spending will not be permitted until 2026. Early approval provides administration the opportunity to begin the preparation of RFP bids and review the availability of grant funding. If desired, council members may submit postponed motions through the council website by May 23rd. Administration will prepare backgrounders on these motions, and the 10-year plan, along with all postponed motions, will be deliberated at the June 3rd meeting. That concludes my presentation, and staff are available for any questions you might have.
No, Councillor Hughes said she had some ahead of time, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah. Okay, so as relates to the charters, just in general, I'm finding the charters very similar from year to year with not the specifics to actually tell us what we're doing. And with the exception of the charters done by Daryl Tanton for aquatics, he's giving me specifics. So I wanted to shout out to him because he gave me what I was looking for. That being said, I'm going to have a bunch of questions now because the charters are basically like rinse and repeat. It's just saying general, but I have no idea what we're actually doing. But so specifically, I'm just going to go through them one by one. So the capital community grant program, Anna's gone, but I know we've increased the budget amount. I'm wondering, are we still using it all up, or are we? I know we approved something, we did 225. I'm just not sure if we actually needed to increase or not now that we've had a bit more time in it. Do we have an idea? I can do that as an IR if you need to, but.
Details for you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Hughes. So the overall granting envelope, we use the population assumption of a 1.3% increase.
Yeah.
So it did increase the base budget based on that per capita increase. We don't really have a sense if I think that's going to be a requirement moving forward because it's only the second year we've implemented that since the new policy framework. But I think what we would do is agree to kind of continue to watch that. And as we provide the grant report to council every year, we would be able to reassess whether we need to hold. That money is able to be carried forward and just put back into the reserve, which we did 2 years ago. We actually didn't fund the charter we used the money from the reserve to offset the program costs and then didn't end up drawing any money to support that program. So right now we have 212,000 still available in the 2025 program. And if not allocated this year, it would be pushed forward into allocation for 26.
Okay, perfect. I was just, if we get like the average 4-year or whatever 2-year thing.
Yeah, certainly. We can have that for next year's budget if that makes sense.
Go anywhere.
And I can speak to the level of detail in the charters. Trust that the process that there is assets that are in the category and there's a life cycle plan that's detailed out with the replacement.
Yeah.
But what we have wanted to always have is the flexibility within those plans that if there was a deterioration or an emergent item that needed to be replaced, we would still have the preview and with the overall approval to make those decisions. So that was why you don't see the particular detailed within each of those life cycles, but understand that there is an existing replacement and estimated based on all of our assets and our condition status, but due to the life cycle and just the nature of assets, we need that flexibility.
So, and I'm not arguing with the flexibility, but if we even have said this is the intended plan, okay? I mean, obviously, even when we've seen things we've approved before, things like we approve the funding and then something changes, like we're doing a different road now. I'm like, okay, we're doing a different road. What am I gonna do? Stand and fly in front of it? But we don't, right now I have no idea what any of the things are. I know we have exact numbers, so we've got an idea what we want to do, but at least it's like, this is the intended, because I'm seeing that in the aquatics. They're saying this is the specifics that include, that's at least where we're intending to put our energy in some capacity. I'm not seeing anything, like I don't know what we're doing in the Art Theater. I don't know which roads we're doing, other than specific with Heber and requiring specific upgrades. I have no idea about anything. So like, what I would love to do, and I don't know if this is too much, is just say, can you just give me some specific items for each one of these items as an IR, like a BIR, and just say for the next week, just say, this is the items. I'm not looking for a War and Peace here. I'm looking for like, here's, again, let's go to Daryl's, what he did. I'm gonna highlight this man because he did an awesome job. And that is that he said the specifics include these. And that's just such change of notice, but at least it tells us the direction that we're actually approving. So I don't really know, because Mayor, I don't need to be here for hours at end, but at the same time, I also just really don't know what I'm approving other than 37 million of stuff. And that's a very vague amount, a very vague direction for a very large amount of money. And not that I'm not debating whether or not we need to do it. I can't tell people where the 37 million is going at all, other than stuff. So like for Arden, what is the intention? I realize it's small, but that's the text from the thing. What is the 200,000 for the Arden being used for? Do we know?
I can answer that question. Thanks for the
Yeah.
Arden Theater. We are spending money in 2026 for operating console, a lighting console for the theater, some concession items that need to be replaced, fridges, etc. And the big ticket item there is the orchestra pit refurbishment for the elevator on the stage.
Is that funding coming from those additional ticket sales? Like, don't we have like a refurbishment thing on the ticket sales? We had that before. So that's where the funding is coming from, right?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Question about the Arts Guild. Okay, so we're gonna go through this together. But the only thing I'm trying to figure out is why are we always paying for all of their replacements when they are leasing from us? Like I'm thinking of like the senior center, they lease from us as well, but we don't do all of their upgrades to all their equipment. They have to figure that out themselves. So is there a reason why we're taking on that responsibility?
Through the mayor to Councillor Hughes, they do not lease from us. They have rentals with us. In the times that they are not using the Visual Arts Studios, Arts and Heritage Foundation is offering community and recreation visual arts classes, and the studios are also available for rentals for meetings and other uses outside of those times.
It's our stuff then, basically, is what you're saying. Okay. The Parks and Rec, so I'm just gonna go forward to the Rec 025, so Parks and Rec activities. I think you're probably okay on this, but let me just go through this with you, Danielle.
Yeah.
Do we have a specific on this one? I don't.
This is line, the majority.
The Lions Park.
Lions Park
Okay, that's
piece, and that's really because when we divested ourselves from Millennium Park, we wanted to also continue on the Lions Park front where we have some major infrastructure and aging infrastructure components we need to address there.
So is there going to be, I realize it's not for 2 years, and that's when the big ticket item comes
Yes.
in. Are we redoing the bathrooms, for example?
So it would be bathrooms. We're not changing the program use of the park. Like still have fire pits there. We'll still have washrooms. We'll still have a picnic shelter, but we're going through all of the assessments of all of the equipment there. Probably a new washroom facility is about, I'm imagining that once we go through design, that facility is probably not repairable. It'll probably need a replacement, but it would say maintain all of the assets that are on there in terms of have enough park.
And then, I'm assuming it's still going to be usable while we do all of this, or are we going to actually be shutting down the park for the
We'll
renovation?
probably have to impact the usage of that park, so it will be working next year as we work through design and bringing, kind of user groups that will be using that park. So we have a lot of events in that park, Children's Festival. We've been having those conversations as we were doing the Millennium Park project, and we'll have to maintain that because there will be some impacts of that park usage during construction for sure.
Is there any plan, and this is high level, but I think the biggest concern with that bathroom is the security.
Yeah.
So is there any intention of like moving it closer to the parking lot?
Potentially. So we did have a SEPTED inspection, which is crime prevention through
Environmental
design.
design. There you go.
Good points for me. So it is that we did do an inspection of that site prior to starting this project. So we are very aware of some of the issues we have on that site, whether it's vandalism concerns, et cetera. So we just want to make sure that we've addressed those through that project. So we will be looking at the location of some of the amenities. Again, we're not changing the amenities there, but we may shift around location a little bit too to make the flow of the park better. Maybe it makes it work better from an events perspective. We'll be considerate of all of those kind of considerations.
So is there a potential we to physically move it and then just demolish the old one, or are we just going to redo the current one? We
We'll
don't.
definitely explore that through design. I'm not sure exactly what that'll look like. Yeah, we have to work through the design process first.
Maybe the biggest thing about safety issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's cool on that. So just stick around and don't just sit down.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the equipment replacement plan, what are we planning to replace on that little guy for 418,000? And we have a big one in 2027. So are they tied together or are they separate?
Good afternoon. I can answer your question for you. To your first question, no, these are not tied together for 2026 and 2027. They are separate. Where 2027 is a focus primarily on the replacement of our self-contained breathing apparatus for our firefighters. Those are the air packs that firefighters wear into an IDHL environment or a fire. On the docket for replacing in 2026 is a number of items, loose equipment that's carried on our fire apparatus, including Sawzalls, as an example, gas detection equipment as well. There's a personal and portable gas detection equipment. And a variety of a number of medical items as well that are used in the treatment of our patients in our EMS program.
Okay, cool. That's cool. I'm just gonna skip the IT stuff because that one's, we've already discussed that many times. The energy replacement program, can somebody explain the PW004? What the intention was? We're not doing anything next year, but we're assessing it, but we have 131,000 every other year. And so I was just trying to figure out, I think this is Trevor if he's around. What is where are we going, I guess, or how are we figuring out what we're going to spend 131,000 on every other year? I know that you said we're doing an assessment, but do we have any idea at this moment or no?
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor Hughes. So the 131,000 every couple of years, essentially what this pool of money or envelope of money funds is big city projects that don't have an energy efficiency component built into it, and oftentimes they fund the studies that are a requirement for receipt of grants from other organizations. So frankly, we're actually a couple of years behind in terms of our expenditure of the 131,000 because we keep getting grants based on the good work that we're doing. But over the next couple of years, some of the work that we're looking at is the real ice installation, revising our targets as it relates to greenhouse gas emissions, both corporately and in the community, as well as recently, as council is aware, we've made some upgrades to EV charging stations in terms of anti-theft technology, and we'll look at potentially expanding that based on the results of the pilot project. So I'll defer to Ms. Myers if there's anything anything further to add to that.
I'll just add that we're also going to be doing some lighting upgrades at Maloney and Beaudry. We're also putting in an endotherm system. I forget if it's at Maloney or Beaudry. And we're also going to do a climate resilience study on 3 of our facilities as well. So that's just some other examples of what's coming on down the line through that project number.
It's all good. We don't have to go into minutia detail. We just can go in like, pretend that you're like 14 and you're trying to tell your parents what you did today. When it comes, thank you for all that. For the roadways, I don't know how to handle the roadways. I'm wondering if I should just do a BIR and just ask if Dean can give us just a map that just says, here's where we're intending to do it and highlight in the pretty colors for the engineering's 01 to 04. Would that work? Okay. The multi-use trail. So I know we have like a rating and we have an overall rating, but I'm looking for, this is probably you, Dean. I don't know how much of this is at level 4 and level 5. And how much we'll be addressing at level 4 and level 5 this year? Because I know we do it by like areas. Do we have any idea of where, or would you prefer to have that on a map as well?
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. I think we can get you the critical areas, the priority sites of like level 4s and 5s on a map. And because those are areas that we're going to be targeting as priorities. So we can map that out, show the planned work in 2026 that aligns to the charter, and then also highlight locations that may be future programs outside of the scope within the next. Because there are, just for context, as an example, in the Villeneuve Road project, there's a segment of trail that we're addressing with that project that is a level 4, I believe, right now. So there's work that goes in kind of coordination with other capital projects that will address some of these priority locations outside of the direct RMR charter itself. But we'll get you that information and give you the background. And if there's further detailed questions, we'll definitely address those too.
Sure. I appreciate that. Because here's the question I have, Dean. Where did he go? Come back, Mr. Dean. There you are. You're up there at the top of my screen now. There's an area of trail that's behind when you're leaving this skateboarding area and you're heading towards the Ball Diamonds. So whichever way you're going, you're heading towards Sturgeon Valley. And there's an area of trail there that has a very wide gap. And it's been there for a couple of years. Like my dog tripped and almost broke his leg and he's got little paws. So I am like very concerned about just our liability on that area. I don't know if that's being intended to do that or not. I can send you something that I'm showing you where it is, but that's definitely like I look at that and I'm like, it's a level 5 area, but we haven't been doing anything on that. So
yeah, absolutely. I think if there's any specifics, we'll get them. If you have a specific location, maybe just send a note or I think through executive leadership or whatnot, we can answer that without a formal IR or anything pretty quick. Maybe more so like a council inquiry or something along those lines, and identify what the priority is, what it's at, what it was last conditioned at. Because I recognize too, when we go through our network screening and condition assessments, the condition assessments aren't necessarily done citywide annually. We do them in sections. So at the time of the inspection, it maybe was a 3.5, and over the course of time, it could have expanded and kind of increased in severity, which that's where we kind of coordinate with public operations and look for a different preventive maintenance kind of responses and actions to address these areas, or it may result in kind of to a context of what Anne had mentioned, a reprioritization of our RMR program subject to the results. So, but if you send those specific requests, we'll look into it. I don't want to.
I'll let you know. You guys can do what you want with that. I had a quick question. I think that I have lots of questions. And on the sidewalk, I think there's like some kind of like robot that was going around and checking sidewalk condition, if I remember correctly. Am I wrong? There's a guy that goes around, or just all manually with a. Because I'm just thinking, if we have like a little robot.
Manual for trip hazard inspections, and then we also, I should say, we are doing now investigating the use of video sensing and whatnot that applies like a different uses video on different assets of the roadway, as well as curb, gutter, and potentially sidewalks. But we're at a kind of an investigation context for that use of technology.
So I just think that might be, if we could somehow get that little guy going, we could actually put him on the trails of 110 kilometers, and then you would get that assessment like in a day, and then you'd know exactly where you might want to go.
We are investigating that as an opportunity with our RMOR program and our network condition assessments for overall for the roadways, trails, and sidewalks, inclusive of supplementary like curb and gutter as well.
I guess the big thing is that if we do it in the sidewalks, don't want to get run over. So I don't know if you tell them to like cross the street properly, right? Anyway, the paved parking lot program, it's only 50,000. So we're just doing investigation this year, I'm assuming. We're just looking into it.
That's correct. We're looking into some condition assessments and then potentially some design on the next priority site.
And the back lanes, if we actually finished the back lanes, like we finished some projects in back lanes, right? Because they're always being carried over. So like if I feel like we're like many, many moons behind on the back lane repair program is how I sense it kind of. Are we at more update than what I'm thinking?
We are. There's been a greater advancement with coordination and timing with our third-party utilities. Like as an example, ATCO, we've shared our program with them. There was some delay in the past, and in the last 2-3 years, there's been better kind of response and timing that has allowed our utility partners to get in, do work in advance of us coming in and doing the work. So we have completed in the last 2 years a significant amount of back lanes that was backlogged with approved funding previously from council, which kind of put us in a position that we weren't requesting additional funding for our back lane program. And we are getting caught up and soon to be in a point that we're asking for additional funds. So yeah, we are doing pretty good in catching up. There was definitely a delay, but we're getting back on point.
Okay, so what I'll do is for relates to that too, I'll just ask if you can just like again, you can put everything on one giant map if you want, or multiples, but just give us an idea of the color codes. Yeah, you know, maybe a few maps, good, just to have an idea of where you're going, or even if you wanted just to write it in where that back lane is.
Yeah, we'll separate them out for each charter to show the planned work.
Okay, and what are we doing on the bridges this year? Which bridge are you looking at?
And so just for clarity, are you asking about work for 2025 or the planned work of the charter associated with the 2026 charter in front of council?
If you have both, I'll take it. What do you?
Okay, so for 2025, we still have some work that was carried over from the Perron Street Bridge, as well as now Children's Bridge is on the list for 2025 completion. In the next program for 2026, I can clarify, I might have to get back in all the details, but we have the network condition assessments that will continue some moderate to low level repairs, kind of network wide. So we do those annually to address some key areas. And the next larger bridge is kind of on the west of the city in terms of reconstructing significant improvements would be Villeneuve or Meadowview. We're kind of looking at likely Villeneuve right now, but those are kind of in the near future. Some pretty significant investment in reconstruct and improvement.
Do we have a bridge on Villeneuve?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Correct.
Oh.
Crossing Carrot Creek.
Okay, well, there you go. Look at that. Okay, I was moving ahead in my little brain trying to get ahead of this, because I don't want to ask you for every single thing. The other thing was the increase to the budget to the not you, Dean, to the public works for the, I think it's 031 from that 4 million to, I know that there was said we're doing it for cost increases. It was I'm looking at you, Diane, because I felt like you wrote it, but maybe you didn't. Did not.
Hasn't been one of those in a long time.
They really took, the person who wrote it really felt Diane and then wrote it and her type of persona. Like the cost increases to it are so substantial, and I'm struggling on just understanding, like I know it said like we have inflation, et cetera, but we're almost doubling that budget.
We'll be online to answer that.
Sure. Which one is the Kinnex Arena, PW031. So it's on.
Oh, yeah,
190.
municipal facilities, yeah.
Maybe.
Are you ready for me? Sorry, I wasn't.
Ready.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so when the PW31 was initially prepared in 2020, it took a look at the overall replacement costs of the facilities throughout the city and used industry standard for assigning replacement RMR type of cost to it. That's in the absence of an EMAM, which we spoke about earlier. So as we've gone through that program, we've completed a number of projects, and we also had the pandemic during that period of time. Our building replacement cost has increased from approximately 149 million in 2020 to over 210 million dollars now. So that has increased using that same philosophy. In addition to that, we use we do have fairly good costing. We were one of the green areas on Jordan's presentation earlier as far as clarity and visibility on the replacement costs and replacement timing throughout our facility. It is a combination of increased value, increased construction costs, and almost a reset of the calculation, because we were not changing any of the year-to-year asks. I believe it was a 4.7 million year-over-year ask. And then last year for 2025 was a 6 million dollar ask. So we updated our condition assessment in 2024, and that is what led us to increasing the request for RMR funding for life cycle facilities.
So I'm, where are you? There you are, Anne. Thank you for that, Tim. I'm wondering, because right now we're just pulling $6 million out, but are we putting it in a separate reserve to handle we have a separate reserve handled for that, right?
We're actually topping up, so we're reviewing the funding required for each of the life cycles. And we're looking at which one, that in order to keep in that 20-year horizon, that zero balance at the end, we're applying into which ones are required. It's been significantly going to the building reserve.
Because what I'm wondering, and I maybe you're already doing it, just you can tell me you're already doing it, because I don't remember, so forgive me. But right now with the utility rates, with the capital fund, we have a 10-year rolling. And then we, it adjusts accordingly. I'm wondering if are we doing a 10, because now it's just a fixed number, but if we know what the projects are going to be, then why don't we look for a 10-year rolling on that, and put that into the reserve as well, so that we don't have surprises, I guess.
And so that's the premise behind that 1.5% RMR.
Right.
Top up is to ensure that we are keeping so that was the assessment. We took all our current life cycle assets estimation with the growth estimate. And then this is where we need our reserves to be continually being funded to keep that positive. So that was that assessment similar to the
I guess I'm specifically looking at Public Works 031. So right now we just have it 8.75 and for the next 3 years and then 6, et cetera. But I guess, are we basing that on the 10-year? Because we're going ahead so many years in advance, right? So, or whatever, 10 or 7 or whatever year we want to do. But that may be something where the amount that you're taking out of capital put in there just needs to be reflective of the current plan. And then that's all.
And that's a good point. That was brought up this morning, the email to say that will give us that refined estimate. And what Tim said, with our actual requirements further of the buildings, we'll be reviewing that 1.5% to see is that sufficient enough to be our existing dollars required for assets.
I'm talking with 1.5%.
Yeah, maybe I can just jump in. I know what you're speaking of, and we've actually talked about it as a group a few times around the fact that to be talking about what we're actually replacing in each year. And I think it's because the buildings program is just evolving, right? 5 years ago, we knew we had hundreds of millions of dollars of work we needed to do on facilities. We had no reserve. So we just started putting money into a reserve. It wasn't based on a calculation. It wasn't originally, the money wasn't based. We were working through condition assessments on all the buildings to figure out what had to be done. And so it's just evolving. So as we get there, that's what it should be. It should be a charter that has a different number in every year based on what we're planning to do. Of course, with any RMR program, sometimes we have to switch things up because something fails faster than we thought it was going to, so bump something else back. So there still needs to be some flexibility. But as we get more information on all those buildings and sort of what we're planning.
And the expense associated, we do have a 10-year outlook of all 70 plus facilities that we have. So we are gaining clarity on that as this program has progressed.
Okay, yeah, because that's, I think, would be helpful, is even if you said, this is the 3 and this is what we're planning to do, I don't care, 3, 6, all of it's subject to change without notice, really, because it depends on if the roof caves in, then it gets to get trumped in, right? But if we had that, and then we're this is the rolling pot, like we did for the utilities. But I realize that in some cases we are getting grants to cover it. So that also is a factor of do we actually need to collect all of it? But anyway, that's all I thought, was just that we have this fixed number and we're kind of guessing right now. And that may not be, I don't know. That's all.
We're not guessing anymore. We are estimating.
Okay. Well, that's helpful. Okay, as we narrow it down.
That we do take that. Cycles over that. And our funding. So opening balance, what's getting added in addition to grants. And that's where we're at. Making sure that balance. We agree that 1 year.
Okay, so I'm gonna just ask for the chart, the maps as a BIR for everything, just so we have an idea, or even a list, like if you don't have to. This exact, but if we say we're doing Hebert Road or we're doing this road or something like that for these things. That would be just really helpful. And going forward, regardless if I'm here or not, that would just be helpful for everybody who's looking at it, because I know that if anybody at the public cares, they care, is it my road happening this year? Both from a improvement and also disruption perspective. And so if we at least say this is the intention, then people can kind of.
And I think that's the nail on the head. So I think I understand completely what you're looking at. You want to be able to delineate sort of the one level of detail down about what's getting done. The danger, of course, is once that's spelled out in a charter, if there's no caveat, then we don't get to react. We have to come back to council for permission to react. And so I think that's the language we need to work on is, right, here's kind of what's forecast, but obviously conditions might drive a change to that. If council's sort of amenable to that, we could probably make those two things work. The problem is by the letter of the law, it becomes a list and we have to come back to you every time there's an alteration. So if we can figure that piece out, I think we're good.
Marta's a smart woman. She can figure out how to put a caveat in there that says this is our intention, but so it's changed depending on how things evaluate. It's all
Depending on our mood.
Yeah, but it's just something that we have a ballpark would be really helpful. Okay, that's what I have. Thank you.
Councilor Bermansky.
Thank you. Just a couple questions, please. If you could reiterate again what the 92.6 for the visual arts studio is in 2027. Is it equipment or?
Sorry, thank you. We're just waiting for folks to pop up. I see Ms. Wilkie and Mr. Turnbull. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to turn it over to Adam to respond.
Right, through the chair, thank you. Primarily it's pottery wheels that year.
Pottery wheels, okay. Okay, that's it's the only question for your department, thank you. Back to Dean, it was mentioned in the, I guess, classifications or that the laneways are all just rated as fair. Would that have been upgraded now that you said you've done some changes there? Or are they still sitting at fair until future asks?
Thank you very much. No, that's correct. Each individual asset, once it's had maintenance performed on it, would be reconditioned based on its up-to-date condition level. So a brand new laneway would be set as such. So I think it's a case that there may be some overall network updates, the overall average and whatnot that could be updated as well. But yeah, we can clarify that too.
Okay, because some of them would be fairly new, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, I was hoping the new ones were just fair. So, okay, that's my only question there. And then one more question on page 160 of the agenda. It has 580,000 for a building construction. Is that number of buildings or is that one building?
Are you able to tell us which charter that is? Sorry.
It's it was on just let me bring it up here. It's on page 160 of our agenda. It's on capital projects and it says 580,000 2027 building construction.
And 014.
014, thank you.
Eve parking lot program. Am I right there?
Yeah, that is the parking lot program.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Did you get the answer you needed?
Well, I didn't know what it was, right? Whether it was a building or what it is. It says building construction, so it didn't make sense that it'd be parking lot, but.
All right, Councilor Killick.
Thank you, Mayor. It's just to follow along this previous question around Lions Park. The three in the project charter, and it kind of goes to Mr. Fletcher's comment about what's in the charter is what gets done. It says it's $3 million in the detailed financial pages that support it. So it's $3 million for landscaping. And yet our discussion of clarification was, washrooms in that washroom building, that should be in the buildings part of the budget. So I feel like I got kind of like left with a somewhat vague answer in terms of is the building gonna be moved or addressed?
I think our expectations, we're gonna probably replace that building and do some movement. Landscaping does include all sorts of things, so. Sorry, go ahead.
So the building will be addressed. I think how it gets addressed is still so.
Because again, Mr. Fletcher, I heard the answer of probably get addressed. And I think when we look at a capital charter, I'm trying to be very, yes or no.
The building will be addressed to Mr. Fletcher's point. We are gonna address the building. I just don't know if that's a repair or replacement at this time, but we will be addressing the concerns we have at that facility. So I think our intent probably is going to be replaced, but if there's a potential to reduce cost and repair, then that would be our expectation. I just can't say that at this time until we work through the design, but we will be addressing the issues of that facility. Within the scope of that project.
And you understand my comment around landscaping at $3 million versus a building at, I don't know.
Absolutely. And I guess when we're building these charters, we're taking assumptions we're using from our consultants that are helping us work through design. So there's still a little bit of navigation through there, but landscaping does include some big buckets of work as well. So I would say that our intent is absolutely to address that facility and that building within the scope of that project.
Okay. Helpful to have that clarity, because when you read it, you kind of left with some question marks there.
Appreciate that.
The other project charter 001 around Service Place. I know we've previously talked about some of the challenges around the sound system.
Yeah.
I see that listed in there as a detail. My question is, will that address the sound system in the actual arena ice surfaces where it's very old antiquated equipment for
You mean the Bluetooth, like the.
Yeah.
So we've already actually upgraded, we're upgraded on one, we're working towards upgrading on all 5. So that would be, we're just making sure we pilot that and that works. There is some safety and security work through that, as well as, to ensure that we've got good communication through an emergency in that facility. So we do have safety and security work identified as well as fire alarm testing. So we've kind of taken those all into one piece of that project.
Perfect.
Okay.
Glad to hear that. And I think Councillor Hughes addressed my question on 031 municipal facilities, significant increase in the budget there.
You all good then?
Yep.
Councilor McCray, you good?
Yeah, no, most of my questions were answered. I guess I have one, and I apologize, I stepped out of the room. It was just in relation to the contingency as it related to our studios down. It just seemed awful low. Like I wasn't sure what the contingency was for. Like, what would you use a contingency for? Would that be just purchasing material? It was just curiosity question, and I don't want to drag us out here. It was in relation to all the studios on the main floor of St. Albert Place. And there's a contingency and it was like 1,920, and I apologize, I was on it further when I had. Don't know whether Elizabeth or Adam can be there to talk about that.
I think so. The pop-up.
I'll try and find it.
Attempt to answer the contingency, but we just
I'll
have
try and find it.
to the overall estimate of equipment that we need to cover any costs.
Yeah, it just seemed really low. Like, I mean, it was like, to be on a capital budget charter, it was just like 1,900. It was just, I just was more curious as to what that would include. So it just for material, like I thought, Adam? I might have been talking when you answered.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think you might have. In particular to 2026, just to clarify.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the actual number here in my, it's not working.
Yeah, no, you're correct. As you look at the contingency line item, it ranges from 3,726 through and then 1,900 2028. Is that?
Yeah, thank you.
Percent of the estimate of the equipment cost.
Okay.
Because it's an estimate of what they're going to replace, and it wasn't like gone out and got a quote for it, right?
Yeah, it just looked like it was such a small number. Yeah, it looked like a tiny number. We don't have any big, like, we don't have to buy a new kiln or redo the kiln in the next little bit or anything like that?
You just did it, yeah.
I hope not.
I know. I'm worried. There's no big oopses there. Okay,
All right.
thanks.
I had one other.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, I generated comments.
Sorry, if I could just go back to municipal facility 031. It lists Leggett Place as having work done at it. Connects Leggett and Jack Craft, but with the big rebuild that we're doing are at the bus barns, are we still needing money to do the other part of the building? Is that what I'm reading this charter says?
You're on mute, Tim.
I apologize for that. As part of the expansion project, we did combine the life cycle programming as well. So there is two different budget areas that are funding. There's the expansion component, which was the growth, which is what we were speaking about last week with the boring. We've also planned to do the life cycle work so that we could experience economies of scale through contracting and also prepare us so that we don't do all this work and then have to come back and do it immediately after.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more question.
You have one more?
One more. So Dean, where are you, the sidewalk? I guess the question,
Which project charter?
007. So if the number for next year in 2027 is dropping substantially compared to all the other years. I'm wondering why there was that deliberate drop for 2027.
Oh, so sorry for 2027, not 2026, because it increased for 2026.
Like we have 2026 seems pretty consistent with all the other years, but then we have one of these things that's not like the others in 2027.
So, and thank you for the question. It's essentially right now what it is it's actually aligned to project scope. So we're getting to the details that now that we've modified our program a little bit in regards to the sidewalk, where we tackle some priority sites, but we're also addressing work adjacent to the roadway work. What we're doing is we're getting in and doing site inspections, and so it's becoming a little more less of a estimated value based on percentage of sidewalk replacement, anticipated for completion, where we have looked in the last couple of years to plan, especially in the next 3 years of scope, getting out there and doing site inspections of these planned roadways and the sidewalk work. So it's a stronger, accurate level. Now, this time next year, I'm probably going to say there's going to be a slight increase or something along those lines. So I don't want to eat my words, but like what it is the variance in the numbers. It's no longer just a placeholder of a value. It's actually relevant to the planned work and site specific and the condition assessments that we're seeing right now.
So we've really modified how we're doing this now. Like your general planning of execution is actually modified quite a bit from 10 years ago.
It has. We've really started to target it. We're trying to get a strong, accurate project level descriptions and scope, and with that, just more accurate, hopeful estimates and whatnot.
I think you have a really big portfolio, Dean. Like between this and the traffic, should be called. I'm just saying, this is you got sidewalk, you got trails, you got traffic, you got a lot. You appear in front of us a lot. I'm just telling you, it's a portfolio. That's it.
I
Thank you.
love every minute of it. So.
All right, thanks for that.
Okay, that's it for questions. This requires a motion to send it. Yeah.
There's a couple of them.
Sorry, I'm just getting
For both the
Do you want me to
capital
know?
and the.
We haven't done utilities yet.
Okay.
No, that's next. So go ahead, Councillor Hughes. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
I presented.
You presented.
Oh, so we didn't get to questions.
On that.
Okay, so we're good. Okay. So we could do both then, motions. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
So that the council members submit any motions for proposal amendments to the 2026-2035, my God, municipal RMR capital plan to administration by May 23rd, 2025. And that administration prepare backgrounders for motions for proposed changes to the 10-year municipal RMR capital plan for presentation to council at the June 23rd, 2025 meeting for consideration and approval. And we are the same distance from 2050 as we were from the year 2000.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I said that.
In municipal and utility RMR capital plans?
You scare me like that. From like,
There's a reason why that's what the number is. Just we have all the motions up. You just do all four.
Keep going, Councillor.
Okay, I just need to go to the next one then. That the council members submit any motions for proposed amendments for 2026-2035 again. Utility RMR capital plan to administration by May 23rd, 2025, and that administration prepare referendums for motions for proposed changes to the 10-year utility RMR capital plan for presentation to council at the June 3rd, 2025 meeting for consideration of approval. Yes. Yeah,
Great, and you have a bunch of
I submitted the IRs.
IRs, so that's good.
And Dean managed to.
Actually, you to read them out in a sec.
And there was a specific tech giving us those directions about which areas you're getting at doing the road work on. We are halfway to 2050.
I know.
And year 2000 was not that long ago.
I know.
So that's all I have to say on that. I just-
So, nothing about the RMR budget, just.
Wait till you get to,
It's like,
wait till you get
Anyone
to
else?
this age. and see.
call for the vote.
In favor.
That passes unanimously. So we are on now. Information request notice of motions and announcements. So you had two, Mike?
Yeah. Can I read them in now?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. IR was submitted for, please provide a list of the 13 unpaved municipal parking lots, and if they are primarily used for city use, i.e. public works yard, or public use, i.e. the Combe Lake, data is requested to support a possible postpone motion. And does the city have a commercial agreement with the companies that allows the placement of newspaper boxes on city sidewalks, i.e. in front of the post office? And what are the contracted standards for maintenance?
Awesome. Councilor Hughes, you want to read in you have three. Yeah. In your
Okay.
inbox.
Yeah, they're there. It's all good. Please provide a list of the currently planned projects for roads for ENG 01, 02, 03, and 04. Then I have, please provide the areas planned for trail 06 for the 2025 and 2026. Also, how many meters of the trail be considered level 4 or 5 after the 2025 repairs have been completed? And if the budget was increased to address more of the level 4, level 5 trail areas, how much more trail could actually be repaired by in 2026? So I don't want to increase the budget if we actually can't use it. And the last one was please provide a description or a highlighted map of the projects planned for 2025 and 26 for engineering 017 lane rehabilitation. That's
All right, and did I get them all? There's no PMs or anything, right? Okay. Any announcements? All right, we're adjourned.
what you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Have a good day.